sports voice of Kansas. We're so glad to be with you on this chilly Tuesday afternoon in the capital city on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online worldwide at 580WIBW.com, and live in living color on our video stream. You can watch us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the channel. You can also catch us on Facebook, WIBW News. Gang's all here. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, and Spencer Dupuis, again with you for the next 3 hours. Lots to get to as we begin to look ahead towards Sunday's AFC Championship game as the Kansas City Chiefs host the Buffalo Bills in the 7th annual Arrowhead Invitational. Yeah, I know they didn't play it at Arrowhead last year. Shut up. It's the 7th annual Arrowhead Invitational. Sometimes they have to move things. The Genesis, the golf tournament, they're having to move that to Torrey Pines because of the wildfires. It's still the Genesis.
Had to play the Maui Invitational in Asheville because of COVID.
Exactly.
And last year they moved it because of a different pandemic. We had to watch Kadarius Toney play football.
Yes, precisely. The very same. So it is the 7th annual Arrowhead Invitational. And
the two things that have caused me the most emotional distress in the last 5 years.
COVID-19 and Kadarius Toney's dropsies.
The signs are there. It's called numerology. Look it up.
Wow, we're starting there. It's all uphill from here, right?
He didn't deserve that today. He's just at home rapping.
Yeah, probably putting some thoughts down on wax. Another Joka album or EP for the Spotify streets coming soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We are delighted that you're with us. Lots of football to get to today, not just Chiefs, Bills. Also, the college football playoff has concluded. A real Cinderella story out of nowhere. You believe in magic. You believe in Cinderella. The plucky 8-seed underdogs from the Ohio State University claiming the first national championship of the 12-team era. And yes, my voice is dripping with sarcasm right now. But look, if you like Cinderella stories, this is as close as the college football playoff is ever going to let you get.
Personally, I am the storyline I'm following most is how Kansas State hated Will Howard and ran him out of town because they thought he sucked. And then Ohio State saved him. That's my favorite narrative today.
It's just people do not know ball. Like, yeah. I think the majority of K-State fans, and you can obviously correct me if I'm wrong through any of the ways that you can interact with this program. I think most K-State fans probably feel pretty good for Will Howard today because Will Howard, look, gave his all for K-State, won a Big 12 championship at K-State. It's not a huge number of quarterbacks who've ever done that, who've ever accomplished a Big 12 championship at Kansas State. And
cool dude.
Yeah, good guy, represented the university well. His leaving was not a middle finger to K-State. They had their quarterback of the future. They were ready to move to the future, and Ohio State needed a veteran quarterback to not be a superstar. Like, be
better than Kyle McCord.
We gave Will Howard all kinds of hell when he said, before the season, like, I don't have to try to be the man or whatever.
Don't have to be the hero.
I don't have to be the hero. Yeah, well, I don't remember the exact verbiage. But, like, he was right because all you got to do is chuck it up there, dog, and Jeremiah Smith is going to go get it. And that dude is an Avenger. Like,
Now, I will say, speaking of Jeremiah Smith, and I saw someone say that Will Howard was maybe the 8th best player on that offense. Exactly what they needed, but also, like, maybe the 8th best player on their offense. That throw to Jeremiah Smith with the game on the line was perfect.
Yeah,
not
throw.
A single thing about it can be critiqued. It was perfect.
It's a huge gamble in that spot. It was a gamble I frankly didn't think Ryan Day had in him. Will Howard laid it up there perfectly, and Jeremiah Smith beat single coverage because, of course, he did.
Yeah, awesome that Al Golden calls that play, and then before the game is even over is the new DC of the Bengals. Awesome.
Yeah. You know who else loves that? Every quarterback in the AFC North.
Yeah.
So, we'll get to some of what we saw last night, the college football playoff, and what the end of that playoff symbolizes, and just where we're at in college football, what we learned from the 12-team playoff, and just kind of where we're at in college football following that. We'll do some way too early top 25 stuff as well. Mark Schlabach of ESPN and Stuart Mandel of The Athletic put out Their 2 early college football top 25s. Both writers have 4 Big 12 teams in the top 25. It's not the same 4 teams. It's an interesting look at what the perceived hierarchy of power in the Big 12 is going to be moving into the 2025 season, and we'll get to some of that. Lots of Chiefs-Bills to get to. Of course, the Chiefs' only loss in a game in which they played their starters, played their varsity, was against the Buffalo Bills back in Week 11. Both teams are very different now than they were then in a way that, typically that's not the case. Week 11 is not that far away, really, but both teams were pretty banged up, and now both teams are a lot healthier in some really important ways. So there's that aspect of it as well, but also some guys who played a big role for the Chiefs in Week 11 in a bad way, not going to factor in on Sunday. We'll talk about who those guys were later on in the show. And also, a bug that I had in the back of my head yesterday, we're actually going to talk it out. The best plays of Patrick Mahomes' playoff career. Where does his touchdown pass to Travis Kelce rank amidst his playoff highlight reel, which is already so lengthy? We will get into some of that. And we'll talk a little bit about what's scary about the Bills. And I'm not asking that in a sarcastic way. This is not like, ooh, who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Like, the Bills are really good. This is number 1 versus number 2 in the AFC. Which parts of the matchup are the most concerning as we sit here on this Tuesday afternoon? We've also got 2 great guests on the show today. Bottom of this hour, Matt Verderame, our NFL insider. We missed him yesterday on Martin Luther King Day. Excited to have Matt back with us on the program today. We'll talk a little bit about divisional playoff weekend and look ahead to the conference championship games. Also, Michael Swain of Fog.net will join us for Jayhawk Weekly at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We'll talk all things KU, including their win in the Sunflower Showdown on Saturday, and look ahead to their matchup on Wednesday against TCU. Plus, sports headlines. What is wrong with you? Little random question Tuesday. All the things you've come to know and love from a Tuesday edition of the program, and your interaction with the show. You can text the program. 785-272-9429 is the number. That's 785-272-9429. You can also jump into the YouTube live chat. If you are watching our live stream on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, there is a live chat feature on the web browser and the mobile device. You can interact with us and your fellow listeners throughout the show in the YouTube live chat today.
717 subscribers now over on the YouTube.
Man, we're moving on up in the world.
Yeah.
We're not even begging for them right now, and they keep coming.
So if you are not subscribed yet, I'm going to call the cops on you. Just kidding, but go subscribe.
We'll start begging. If we need to, we will. We're not above that.
I will.
Not above that. Not afraid to do that.
I'm not above anything.
Again, the YouTube live chat, 580 Sports Talk is the channel. You can also hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Back in Week 11, Bills beat the Chiefs 30-21. What's the first thing you remember about that game in Orchard Park?
Honest to God, not when it was. I thought that game was like week 7, week 5.
No, yeah.
11.
Right
way
before,
later than
right
I realized.
before the Buffalo bye.
Yeah. I just remember it. I just remember it being afterwards. It's like, hey, the losing or the winning streak's over. Like, just get it when it matters. Just win when it matters.
Do you remember anything about the game?
Oh, really? I do remember Najee Johnson got torched.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. Josh Allen obviously had the 4th and 2 touchdown run that sealed the game. Chiefs were trying to get a stop, get off the field, and looked like they kind of had the play bottled up. And Josh Allen made magic happen with his legs and carried for the touchdown. Ended up icing the game with just over 2 minutes to play and providing the 9-point margin of victory. It was the first time the Chiefs had allowed 30 points or more since the Eagles Super Bowl. So it's been a very long time since that had been the case. Remember that part of it. Don't remember much else about the game, which, again, it's a regular season game. They're not really designed to live all that long in the memory, especially if you lose them, and especially if you go on from that point to not really lose again. I know the Chiefs have a loss since then, but let's be real about what Week 18 was. Not only have the Chiefs not lost since Week 11, they haven't turned the football over since week 11, which is one of the more remarkable stats of this run that the Chiefs have been on, that they turned the ball over twice. They were -2. Mahomes threw a really bad pick early in the game, and it led to, I think, directly to, yes, it did. It led directly to Buffalo's first touchdown. It was intercepted in Buffalo territory, but still, second play of the game, second offensive play of the game. Mahomes got picked off on a deep ball. Taylor Rapp picked him. And the Bills were able to take the lead and never looked back from there. So, 2 turnovers for the Chiefs in that game. They have not turned the ball over since. The Bills committing a turnover in that game. Remember who intercepted Josh Allen in that game? Because Josh didn't throw a lot of them this year, only 6.
Yeah.
Shamari.
It was Shamari Connor. Well done. Since that game, the Bills have turned the ball over exactly once. One time in their final 6 regular season games, they have yet to commit a postseason turnover. So, again, week 11, it was obviously a huge game for the Bills. They had to have it. The Chiefs were undefeated at the time. Bills wanted the number 1 seed. Any chance of it, they had to win that game, and they did. Both teams were dealing with a lot of injuries. The Bills didn't have Matt Milano, who I would argue is their most important defensive player. I don't know if that means I think he's their best. He's very good. But is it fair to call Matt Milano their most important defensive player?
Ooh, most important. There's an argument for it. Yeah, I would say certainly there's an argument. I think there's an argument for Ed Oliver probably and what he does in the middle. You don't really have that star in the defensive backfield right now. Yeah, I think it's fair to call Milano.
Don't have a superstar pass rusher either.
No.
So I would say Milano's the most important guy. He was just coming off of injury, and he did not play in that game. Their right tackle, Spencer Brown, did not play in that game. A lot of their big weapons in the passing game did not play in that game. Keon Coleman was out. Dalton Kincaid was out in that game. Josh Allen, however, still able to, despite not throwing to the most impressive collection of skill guys, still was 27 of 40 for 262 yards in the contest. Here, 8 receptions for 70 yards. Curtis Samuel caught a touchdown. Amari Cooper had 1 big catch. We'll get to Najee Johnson here in a little bit. But those were the absences for the Bills. Chiefs are obviously without Hollywood Brown, without Charles Omenihu. Isaiah Pacheco was out. Jalen Watson was out. DeAndre Hopkins has been a Chief for like 5 minutes. Wanye Morris was the left tackle in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Najee Johnson started at cornerback opposite Trent McDuffie. Nate Taylor has an article today at The Athletic that I recommend people check out. Friend of the program, Nate Taylor, Chiefs beat writer, talking about that first meeting and pointing out the things that the Chiefs did not do well in that game against the Bills. And he says that Johnson struggled in coverage, which I think is an extremely polite way to describe the afternoon that Najee Johnson had in Orchard Park.
Sure.
Surrendered 9 receptions for 103 yards, including a touchdown on 12 targets as the nearest defender. That was Josh Allen picking at a scab. And it was also a really rough game for Shamari Connor, even though he had the interception. Taylor writes he had several lowlights in the second half that led to the Bills' 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. The entire defensive unit missed a season-high 13 tackles, and the Bills went 9 for 15 on third down. So I think in a lot of ways, not just in terms of the personnel, but just in terms of like a characteristic performance, it was not a characteristic Chiefs defensive performance in a lot of ways. So what's going to be different? What can be different on Sunday? Well, obviously, you're in better shape at corner with Jalen Watson playing. Jalen Watson being back gives you the opportunity to maybe move Trent McDuffie around like he did last week, follow Nico Collins for the better part of the game. Maybe Trent McDuffie follows Shakir for the better part.
Yeah, I mean, the question there is that the guy you want followed the most? I mean, that then puts more pressure on Amari Cooper, who has been a ghost. He was the Bills' version of DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver 4 and didn't have a catch last week. Or, well, additionally, if you have Trent McDuffie covering Khalil Shakir, you put more pressure on Amari Cooper. You also put more pressure on Keon Coleman to make a big impact, and he has been more of a bit player than the star featured player so far in that passing game. probably force a little bit more action to the tight ends. I assume that's probably the guy they want matched up on him.
It'll be fascinating to see if that's what they do. We'll talk to Matt Verderame, our NFL insider, here in about 20 minutes or so, a little less than 20 minutes. But he's doing a rewatch of that Chiefs-Bills game, and McDuffie didn't cover Shakir in the slot, at least in the first half. Didn't happen at all. And Shakir was most notably the main man in that game because of who was absent, who had just gotten to the team.
Mm-hmm.
Little bit of a different calculus this time around with both Kincaid and Knox being healthy and available. But I do think that's an interesting question, whether Trent McDuffie now, in a similar fashion to Saturday against the Texans, if he's going to follow around the top wide receiver target for the Chiefs. But either way, it's a lot less Nazi Johnson on the field, and that was a big problem in the first meeting.
I did notice, though, this weekend he was playing defense a lot.
Well, I mean, they're going to still rotate him in. He's cornerback 4, or I didn't see as much Joshua Williams. I think they like Johnson's flexibility, like in the slot. You saw him come on a blitz and nearly have a deflection of a pass.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a role for him. Outside corner wasn't it, quite obviously, and it was painful back in week 11. Something else the Chiefs didn't do particularly well in that game was get after the quarterback. You know how many sacks Chiefs had in that game?
None.
Goose egg.
0. Do you know how many quarterback hits they had?
2.
Only 4. Only have 4 quarterback hits in the contest, where Mahomes was sacked twice and hit 7 times. The pass rush really lacked. Charles Omenihu didn't play in that game. Charles Omenihu is playing on Sunday. I think that there are guys, and this is true, I think, across all sports, you would say they're a playoff riser, that their best comes when the stakes are the highest. And I think what we have seen, not just last season before his unfortunate torn ACL in the conference championship game, but also as a San Francisco 49er prior, Charles Omenihu plays his best when the stakes are the highest. Yeah, I think he's a legitimate playoff riser. And part of that is, I mean, that's where we've seen the most Charles Omenihu, because he missed most of this year and he missed a good chunk of last season with the suspension. But he's a guy that is going to be able to win one-on-one and seems to be impactful in every game that he plays in. And the Chiefs really missed that, even against a Buffalo offensive line that didn't have Spencer Brown. They weren't able to put much pressure on Josh Allen, because it wasn't a game where Allen, game-sealing touchdown notwithstanding, beat the Chiefs handily with his legs. He did lead the team in rushing in the game, but 26 of his 55 yards came on the one run, right? Other than that, it was 11 carries for 29 yards. It's not like it wasn't Lamar Jackson type of stuff from Josh Allen. He was able to beat the Chiefs from the pocket and beat them on third down because the pass rush wasn't there. That's the thing that's going to have to be different. And typically the Chiefs pass rush and their blitz schemes get a little better, get a little more complex this time of year. I don't know for a fact that Steve Spagnuolo was saving stuff for a possible January meeting. I don't really think that happens all that often, especially in a high-stakes game, because there are some regular season games that are higher stakes than others. And if the Chiefs had won in Buffalo, that would have all but secured the number 1 seed at the time. So I don't think necessarily the Chiefs were holding some things back, but do I think they've got some new stuff for the Bills? Do I think Charles Omenihu gives them the opportunity to do some new stuff? Do I think that Jalen Watson being in coverage gives them the opportunity to do some new stuff? Yeah, I do. And I think that could be really, really impactful and make a big difference on Sunday in the second meeting.
No, I mean, I would think so. This essentially comes down to the fact that the Chiefs can win this game without playing probably an A game. I do think the Bills need to play an A game, and I think the Chiefs will be able to get to their version of their best in different ways than they did the first time, if that makes sense. I know that sounded a little bit like word salad, but the fact that they can bring extra guys on the pass rush, they've got better depth in terms of their defensive backfield. There are more things they can present to the Bills, and the Bills are going to need Josh Allen to be perfect, because that's what it's going to take. And there have been times when perfect is still not even good enough, like the 13 seconds a game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take that. I don't necessarily think that, what the Chiefs are adding into the mix is a death knell to the Bills, because they're going to be able to present other things
Yeah,
too.
both teams are getting guys back.
Yeah, they've gotten some guys back. They've adjusted the play calling. They've adjusted, who is in what role and all that. So I don't think it's necessarily, Charles Omenihu is the answer. He is the Josh Allen stopper, and it's over because he's playing. I don't think it's anything like that. But I still think the Chiefs' best and most creative is better than anyone else's best and most creative. And I think that's your difference maker here.
So obviously third down will have to be better on the defensive side, and they'll have to get some better pressure on Josh Allen. Offensively for the Chiefs, it was not a great Mahomes game. Like, I think he'd probably be the first to tell you. He threw for 3 touchdowns in the contest, 2 of them to Noah Gray. That was in the Noah Gray renaissance period of the season. By the way, I saw this stat today. I think it was Aaron Schatz on Blue Sky.
Mm-hmm.
The top 19 Chiefs tight end seasons in history by individual like DVOA value are all either Travis Kelce or Tony Gonzalez.
That is pretty crazy.
And number 20 is this year Noah Gray. This is the best Chiefs tight end season ever by a Chiefs tight end who is not. And now look, the stats don't go back like all the way, but still, like outside of maybe the 2 best to ever do it, certainly 2 of the 5 best to ever do it, Noah Gray's having the best tight end season by a Chief ever, which is kind of a funny thing. Anyway, Gray caught 2 TDs. Worthy caught a touchdown that game, but Mahomes
Can you name many others? Like, are you shocked Anthony Fasano is not number 20?
Shout out to Tony Moeaki.
Yeah.
Who's the big doof in the mid-90s? Ted something? Was there a guy like named Ted who played tight end? Popson. Ted Popson. Is that right? I think that's right.
Yeah, I mean, like, no love for Keith Cash. Like, I'm not
Keith
super
Cash
surprised.
actually was a decent player. Yeah, Ted Popson, 1997 and 98 with the Chiefs.
Legendary career.
Yeah, he was with the 49ers before that, just like every other Chief of the mid-90s.
Yeah.
He also played for the London Monarchs.
How about that?
Nice.
The World League.
Derek Walker had a couple of okay years, I guess, in the early 90s. This is all pre-Tony Gonzalez. Yeah, I'm not giving you a whole lot. I don't have a lot of Chiefs tight ends. Like, if that were a category on
so the point being,
I'd struggle.
To illustrate the point, yeah, I'm not surprised that Noah Gray, with how well he played in that middle stretch of the season, is right up there.
But it wasn't Mahomes' best game. 23 of 33, 196, threw the 2 picks, took the 2 sacks. Didn't have a rushing attempt in the game, which Mahomes tends to scramble more and make more of an impact with his legs, typically in January. Kareem Hunt was okay, 14 carries, 60 yards. Certainly not spectacular, but the passing game, again, it was the same thing we talked about all year where the Chiefs just weren't explosive. Kareem Hunt had 1 17-yard run. Xavier Worthy had a 31-yard catch, and that was it. Those were the longest plays of the game. Travis Kelce had 2 catches for 8 yards. DeAndre Hopkins caught 3 balls. They went for 29 yards.
Yep.
Noah Gray caught 4 for 23. Peyton Hendershot and Carson Steele had receptions in this game. Like, it was not a very explosive offense. I kind of think the Chiefs are going to need to hit on some big shots if they're going to win this game, because I think the Bills aren't going to make as many mistakes and be able to drive the ball and be able to put up, like, they're going to score more than 14 points. So for the Chiefs to be able to score with the Bills, they're going to have to hit for some more big plays than they did in that first meeting. That's going to have to be part of their game plan.
I would agree with that.
We're going to take a quick timeout. We got Matt Verderame coming up here in just a little bit. Also, the Mahomes highlight reel. Where does that touchdown pass to Kelce from Saturday rank on your personal Mahomes playoff highlight reel? I'll tell you where it ranks on mine. We'll tell you where it ranks on ours next. As we continue on, we're just getting of 580 Sports Talk. 3:33 on 580 Sports Talk. Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated can join us here in just a little bit. We brought this up briefly on yesterday's show. Patrick Mahomes' touchdown pass to Travis Kelce on Saturday instantly goes into the pantheon of all-time Patrick Mahomes playoff moments. But where exactly does it rank for you? I'll give you my top three Mahomes playoff plays of all time. For me, number 3 is the touchdown pass he threw to Marquez Valdes-Scantling in the 2022 AFC Championship game against the Bengals. An absolute seed on one leg to MVS, front middle of the end zone, with the pass rush bearing down on him. There's a throw only but a half dozen quarterbacks in history can make, and he made that on one good leg. Absolute seed. If you don't remember it, go watch the clip. That's one of my favorite Mahomes throws of all time. It's my number 3 Mahomes playoff moment. Number 2 is that touchdown pass to Kelce. Like, immediately iconic image, him falling forward. Obviously, it gets bonus points because it's connection to Travis Kelce. We'll see how well it ages, certainly.
Sure.
But that to me is second best play I've seen him make. Number 1 is the touchdown run against the Titans in the that would have been the 19 AFC Championship game, when it really just felt like it does, like, at the end of the first anyone half. Does matter. Once they completed the comeback against the Texans, it was okay. What is it? You're not stopping this team. At that point, it was like seeing God. I would have believed anything that Patrick Mahomes did on a football field after he did that. That is to me still my favorite Patrick Mahomes playoff moment. The top 3 are pretty easy for me. It's Jet Ship Wasp. It's the run against the Titans, and it is the run against the 49ers. Oh, well, I guess the Eagles run is the one I'm thinking of. He had 2 runs in overtime against the 49ers last year. I'm thinking of the Eagles run. The Eagles run, bad leg on the drive that led to the go-ahead field goal. Yeah. That's definitely up there. Yeah, the injury adds to that one. No, for sure. And the fact that it was in the Super Bowl. Right. Like, you get bonus points for the higher stakes. Yeah, those would be my top 3. Like, the touchdown throw to Kelce to win the 13 seconds game is an all-time great play, but, like, that falls off because of what happened afterward. Yeah. And hopefully we're not saying the same thing about this particular touchdown pass to Travis Kelce. Same thing with Andy Reid's, when things are grim, be the Grim Reaper. That would have gone so hard if they had not lost the next crazy hard, and there were T-shirts, and I've never seen anybody wear one of those T-shirts. No, because you can't. You can't do that. No, nobody's ever done that. We got to get to Matt Verderame, our NFL Insider. That's coming up next on 580 Sports Talk.
safest, most effective source for these smart cells is you. Live the life you love. Contact Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center in Manhattan and Kansas City. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
All the way to the goal in the throwdown.
Man.
He's open for three. Yes! Yes!
A Wildcat.
3 seconds to go. Scoop shot. Yes! At the buzzer.
The Wildcats claw their way onto the hardwood all season long.
Now goes back in. There's the lob and the throwdown.
Be a part of the Wildcat voyage right here on your home for Kansas State Wildcat basketball. The K-State Sports Network from Learfield.
580 WIBW. WIBW. Topeka.
Football.
Matt! Okay, now go out and catch the ball for a change, all right?
Matt? You just don't understand football, Mark.
Matt.
Ben Heels. 16 stars. Glory.
How can you not be romantic about football?
We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Matt Verderame, our NFL insider from Sports Illustrated, SI.com. Also his personal Patreon, the Matt Verderame Show, which you should be a subscriber to, and that football show on the KC Sports Network. Typically joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline on Mondays. We are grateful to have him on this Tuesday. Matt, what impressed you the most about the Chiefs' 23-14 win over the Texans on Saturday?
So I covered the game in person, and by the way, thanks for the flexibility this week. That was my fault about yesterday. But I think the most impressive thing was that I thought as the game went on, the defense tightened the screws. I thought they were terrific in the fourth quarter. Obviously, it felt like a million sacks, and there were 8. But look, the Chiefs defensively got better as it went on. It wasn't perfect. They gave up a good amount of yardage in the game, but they made the plays that they needed to make. And then offensively, it's Kelce. Like, that's why I wrote my column about coming out of the game. 7 for $117 and the touchdowns, easily his best game of the year. And it just felt like watching that game from up top at Arrowhead, anytime they needed 10 yards, they could just go to him. They could beat man coverage. They could beat zone coverage. They could manipulate the linebackers. They could manipulate the safeties. And, look, Kelce has been really, like, if you look at his game log, you could argue he's the greatest postseason performer of all time. Like, you really could, comparative to what you'd expect out of the position. He's certainly on the Mount Rushmore. And you saw it again. I mean, he looks like he's in a slow jog most of the game, but he's just wide open constantly, and that's a credit to him.
The numbers bear out that the Chiefs, over the course of these last 7 playoff runs, including this one, which have all, of course, gone to at least the AFC Championship game, that they play better in the playoffs than they do in the regular season. Like, the DVOA numbers bear this out. I don't necessarily know if I believe the idea that it's as simple as flipping a switch, but what is different? What looks different about the playoff Chiefs, particularly this year? What looked different about playoff Kansas City Chief football than what we saw in the regular season?
Well, I think there's one intangible and one tangible thing. The tangible thing is that they do hold stuff back for the playoffs. They do. They're so great that they can just win a lot of games in the regular season, playing with a pretty limited menu. They don't need, in most games, to go to the A script. They can play a B script. They can play C script, and they're going to win because they're just more talented. The quarterback is superhuman. They can just do things with average run-of-the-mill plays where teams know what they're going to do, and it doesn't matter. They beat them anyway. In the playoffs, you get a little bit of a different flavor. I think, again, I mentioned the defense got better as the game went on. I think for the offense, they just kind of realized, like, hey, you know what the Texans can't do? Guard anything between the numbers with their linebackers and safeties. And we are just going to relentlessly put Al-Shaair in conflict and just destroy him. And that's what they did. I mean, if you go back and look at the biggest plays in that game, Azeez Al-Shaair had no idea what to do in coverage. None. I mean, they just relentlessly went at him. And I think in the regular season, if they saw that, they would have made it, okay, get a play here, play there. But they wouldn't have just constantly dove at him, in big spots because they would have wanted to sit on it. And I think the intangible thing is they get bored during the regular season. I mean, I saw Travis Kelce did an interview with Stephen A. Smith for the playoff game where he was talking about how, I really, wish we could have just hit fast forward on the regular season, but we've got to play those games. Like they know they're going to be here. They want to get here. And I can tell you, playing the only team that really beat them all year long, they are going to be amped up for Sunday night.
Let's talk about those Buffalo Bills on through to the AFC Championship game after a 27-25 home win over Baltimore. Fourth time that the Josh Allen Bills will be facing the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs in the playoffs. What is different about these Bills from last year's Bills that had home field advantage, where Tyler Bass kick away from tying the game, to relative to the Bills that took them to overtime, the 13 seconds game? What's different about these Bills that could maybe be the difference for them this time?
Well, for better or worse, I think this is a Bills team that's kind of built more in the way the Chiefs are, where they get their explosive plays largely when Allen gets out of the pocket, play breaks down, and but they don't get a lot of those scheduled explosive plays, like those on schedule. Hey, we're going to hit Gabe Davis. Say whatever you want about Gabe Davis. The one thing he could do was get deep down the field. They had Stephon Diggs last year, of course, where Diggs did not play particularly well as the year went on, but it was a huge threat in the game it was in. This team is not that. I mean, the Bills don't have one guy with 900 yards receiving. James Cook barely cracked the 1,000-yard mark. I mean, they don't threaten you vertically, really at all. Like they're not built that way. Their best receiver is Shakir, and Khalil Shakir is a nice player, but he's a slot guy. And, he's going to kind of beat you with his quickness and route running more than he is just his straightaway speed. So this is, Coleman is not fast. Cooper is not particularly fast. Curtis Samuel's really the one guy they have that has speed. They haven't really used him much. So this Bills team, it's more about Allen being a dual threat. The way they run the ball, they've got, Cook is the lead back, but they've also got, Ray Davis, who's a good rookie, and Ty Johnson, who's more of their pass catcher. So this game is going to be a lot about taking Shakir out of the plays that matter on third down, and also, look, these running backs, they're not Austin Eckler in their prime catching the ball, but the Bills do like to throw to the backs, and that's something the Chiefs are going to have to be aware of in the game.
Matt Verderame is our guest. He covers all things NFL for Sports Illustrated and SI.com. Also the host of the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon and that football show at the KC Sports Network. Joining us today via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. With Khalil Shakir, we were talking about this a little bit earlier on, and he is a good player, maybe a little more limited than your true X or Z wide receiver, as you laid out there, Matt. Yeah. But if you're the Chiefs, would you want Trent McDuffie on him, shadowing him during this game to just eliminate him and put more pressure on the tight ends and Coleman, or would you maybe go a different way with McDuffie?
So it's actually funny, like literally right before we started doing this, I've been sitting there watching all 22 of the Week 11 game. And in that game, for those who may not remember, Jalen Watson did not play. He was hurt. I am in the early stages of the fourth quarter of my rewatch of this, and McDuffie is not lined up on Shakir one time in any capacity. He's not been in zone. He's not been in man. He has been completely, like, early on they played Najee Johnson on Amari Cooper, and Amari Cooper torched Najee Johnson, and then they were like, okay, that's Trent McDuffie's guy, and Amari Cooper has not had one target since, as I sat here and watched it. I have a strong suspicion, based on watching this game, that the Chiefs are going to put McDuffie on Shakir in this game, and they're going to put Watson on whether it's Coleman or Cooper outside. And they're just going to say, look, you're not beating us with those guys. You're not. And if you want to beat us throwing the ball to, whoever's not covered by those two guys, whether it be a Coleman on a certain play or Mac Hollins, fine. Do it. Beat us. I don't. That's the problem the Bills face in this case. I don't know if they can. Watson being back in this game is not going to get the national play that it should. It is an enormous difference watching the film in this game. I mean, Connor was on Shakir most of the game. He got some snaps are good, but a lot of missed tackles. Shakir was able to shake free and get open. Najee Johnson was beat a lot in this game. Like, Watson being back allows them to make McDuffie the queen of the chessboard. And I think that matters a lot more, because if you go back and watch that game, the Bills could not run at all. The Chiefs just had bare fronts. They put 5 men down on the line and basically said, you will not run the ball. And they couldn't. and they were able to bail out a lot of times because Connor and Najee Johnson were targeted just relentlessly. And there's a world that those guys aren't even on the field in this game. So it's going to be very interesting. I have a feeling that they're going to weaponize McDuffie in the slot where he can blitz, he can cover Shakir, and they're going to be fine putting Watson on Coleman or on Cooper and feel like they're going to win that matchup most of the time.
To get to the AFC Championship game, the Bills had to beat the Ravens in what was maybe not the cleanest game ever, but it was a fun game, certainly a good way to end divisional round weekend. The team that made fewer mistakes won that game, Matt, but did the better team win that game?
See, I always feel like, yeah, they did, because the Ravens went out and made 3 egregious mistakes, and the Bills didn't. And that's to your point, I think the Ravens, if they had played a clean game, would have won that game. But that's the problem with the Ravens in recent years, right? And the Ravens had 3 turnovers in the AFC title game last year and 5 personal fouls, and on and on. You could go through the Ravens' losses in the playoffs, and they're all the same game. Just a million self-inflicted mistakes. We always talk about Mike Tomlin. John Harbaugh deserves some side eye a little bit after these games. Are you ever going to coach one of these games you win, and you don't have a million different errors that you look back on and go, well, that was self-inflicted, that was it's on the players, but it's also at some point too, everybody thinks Baltimore's maybe the most talented team in football, certainly in the top 3, and they do this every year. I think Buffalo, to its credit, didn't beat itself. Allen did not put the ball in harm's way. They didn't make big mistakes. They were efficient when they needed to be efficient. Now, look, I will say this. One thing that would set off alarm bells for me if I'm Buffalo, the Ravens were not at full strength offensively, right? They did not have Zay Flowers in that game. They really don't have any other receiver that scares you. Bateman kind of, sort of, but not really. The Bills got roasted in that game, in the pass game. They just could not get home, even when a lot of times they blitzed. The Ravens had all kinds of space throwing the football. If that plays out again on Sunday, they're going home. Because if Mahomes is all day to throw the ball, and there's wide open spaces in the secondary, which has been a theme for the Bills the last half of the season, that's death. That is playoff death at Arrowhead. So the Bills have to figure that out in a hurry.
We're joined by Matt Verderame here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirit Hotlines, and moving to the NFC. Matt, is Jaden Daniels human?
He hasn't looked it. I give the Commanders a lot of credit. It's funny. I went back. I did the research before the divisional round, and teams that were favored by more than 7 points in the history of the divisional round were 65 and 18. It's a 78% win percentage. But against the spread, it was literally 41, 41, and 1. And so I went into it saying, look, one of these teams is going to cover and one of them's not. Well, the Chiefs covered. The Lions did not even come close to covering. And a huge part of that was Daniels. The one thing he does, other than, look, there's a million things he does. He has a ton of poise. He's a great player. But to me, more than anything, he is such a dual threat. When Lamar came into the league, the legs were amazing, but he wasn't really the refined passer yet. That's kind of come on in recent years. Jaden Daniels just sit back there and sling the hell out of the football, but then also can just take off for 25 yards, or on 4th and 2, put you in conflict. I thought it was a weird way the Lions played that game defensively. Now, look, I know they're beat up. I get it. I understand they were playing with one hand tied behind the back, but you're still a huge favorite for a reason. They were the better team in that game, or should have been. And every time they blitzed Jaden Daniels, he killed him. Just relentlessly. He'd take off running. He would throw to an open receiver. And they just kept doing it. And I give Daniels a lot of credit to go in there in a game where, let's face it, nobody thought they were going to win that game. And to pull that out, but they're a real dog. They're a real live underdog in the NFC title game. Philadelphia is the better team, but if I was Philadelphia, I would certainly not be sleeping on this game. Washington could absolutely go in there with this kid and win this game.
All right, Matt, we got about 30 seconds here. You said at the beginning of the playoffs you thought it would be Kansas City and Philadelphia going to New Orleans. Do you still think so?
Yes. I'm more confident in Kansas City than Philly. Buffalo is a terrific team, and Buffalo could certainly win. I have seen the Chiefs in so many of these spots. They make the plays, and I think Buffalo's going to need the Chiefs to make a couple of mistakes to win. I don't think the Chiefs are going to make those mistakes. I think we'll have a rematch of Super Bowl 57.
Matt Verderame will have it covered for Sports Illustrated, SI.com. The Matt Verderame Show on his Patreon. You can find him on social media at Matt Verderame, and you can hear him every week here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, it is always a pleasure. Enjoy Championship Sunday.
You too. Take care.
That is Matt Verderame. We'll step aside, come back for a final segment of this first hour of 580 Sports Talk right after this. All right, thanks again to Matt Verderame for joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. Random question Tuesday. Here's a quick one. What's the dumbest thing that you know is dumb, but you will always watch it if it comes across your algorithm, whether that's YouTube, whether that's TikTok, whether that's Facebook Shorts or Instagram Reels? What is the dumbest thing you will always watch?
The guy mowing the lawn.
Okay.
Like a specific, like just any lawn mowing video?
SB mowing.
SB mowing. I'm going to Google that.
Is this a TikTok thing?
He does YouTube videos.
Oh, okay.
He does long form. Like, it's just
All
a
right.
time-lapse video of this guy mowing random lawns. He
All
does
right.
for free.
Respect. Okay.
That's a good one. I only know TikToks that make it to other social media. I'm not on the TikTok. I'm too old for that. But there's one of a guy who says something about, I can chug this grape soda in under 3 seconds or something. And he tries to chug it and it really bothers him. And he goes, oh no. And then he throws it up immediately and hits his head on a garage door.
Uh-huh.
And it's one of the funniest videos I've ever seen in my life.
That specific video.
That specific video, I will watch it 50 times over and over again.
For me, it is the video game animation simulations with the, let's see if this sports car can jump over 100 storage containers.
Yes.
Can this vehicle slide underneath the semi-truck? And they just run them over and over again, and the cars suffer these catastrophic damage.
That's a good one.
That is a great genre of, like, they've been coming up on my Facebook page a lot lately.
There's one other there. I don't know if it's still active. There was an account on X, the Everything app. It's all happening on X. The SNL hosts introduced the musical guest, and they're all just 3-second videos. And it's like, oh, here's Reese Witherspoon introducing Bare Naked Ladies. And that's it. And I'll watch all of them. I don't know why they're mesmerizing to me, but they are. That's where you get the great clip of, was it Drew Barrymore? Who says, ladies and gentlemen, the very sexy Garbage.
Somebody said that was Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yep.
The iconic Daniel Craig introducing The Weeknd.
Weeknd.
Yeah, that goes around all the time, too. That is a good genre of video. Coming at the 4 o'clock hour, what is wrong with you? Michael Swain from Jayhawk Weekly and a Cinderella story in the college football playoff on 580 Sports Talk.
on our way up closer to 35 or so later on Wednesday. Some breaks in the overcast. Small wind chance for flurries with a disturbance sliding through. Wednesday night, partly cloudy, a low upper teens. Good deal of sunshine for Thursday, the high upper 20s. And plenty of sunshine coming our way for Friday. High should rebound to some mid to upper 30s. I'm meteorologist Jeffrey Ramon from the Capital Federal Weather Center.
Stay connected with the voice of Kansas, WIBW.
Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on a Tuesday. Here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9. Online at 580WIBW.com. And on our live video stream, you can watch us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the channel. Welcome into everybody who is watching the video, either live or archived, which you can do anytime on the YouTube channel. You can also watch us on Facebook. The page is WIBW News. The Power Trio is all here. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, Spencer Dupuis, rocking with you on this Tuesday. Thank you for choosing to spend some of your time with us this afternoon. Got some more Chiefs to get into a little bit later on in the show as we continue to look ahead to Sunday, the Chiefs and the Bills. I got to tell you, having Matt Verderame on, as we just did in the first hour of the program. If you missed it, check out the podcast page, 580WIBW.com, or find us on Spotify, 580 Sports Talk. Listening to Matt Verderame talk about the matchup gave me more confidence in a Chiefs victory on Sunday. Like, I already think they're going to win because at this point, it's the Chiefs in the playoffs. Why wouldn't you at least be reasonably confident in their chances of winning? But if the Bills can't get pressure on Mahomes, because they've got real weaknesses in pass coverage, real weaknesses down the middle of the field in particular. If Patrick Mahomes can exploit those with a rejuvenated Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy or Hollywood Brown or whoever else can find space in the middle of the field, because the Chiefs have guys who can find space in the middle of the field, they're going to score like they haven't scored all season. So
which is to say 30 points.
Yes, they're going to finally get to 30. Wouldn't that be a great gag?
It would be very funny.
They finally get to 30 in the conference championship game. After like finding creative ways not to get to 30 throughout the season. So I appreciate again Matt Verderame for coming on and joining us. Coming on later this hour, Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. He'll join us for Jayhawk Weekly. We've got plenty of Jayhawk talk to get to, including how KU navigates without KJ Adams as they go back on the road this Wednesday against the Horned Frogs of TCU, who are pretty stinky, like if we're being honest. I haven't seen a line for this game, but I would expect that KU wins this one pretty handily on Wednesday night in Fort Worth. 6 o'clock tip-off, by the way, so we'll be rushing home to catch that one. Yeah, I don't see a betting line here.
Yeah, I might not.
Did you guys see that both the K-State and KU games on Wednesday tomorrow are going to be on the networks of ESPN, like on the linear television?
That
channels.
is correct. K-State at Baylor is on ESPN U. It's on the U.
The U.
Nope.
Where's KU TCU? Big
2.
ESPN.
ESPN
the
2.
Deuce.
Yeah, the Deuce.
The Deuce at 6.
I do not know it's on Big ESPN. Wednesday night, probably an NBA doubleheader.
Yeah.
You are correct. Oh, we do have a line, 6.5.
6.5?
Yeah, 6.5 favoring KU.
Hammer that.
Yeah.
TCU
did just beat Baylor. I'll give him credit.
Did just beat Baylor. And if I'm not mistaken, TCU is really good defensively. Their offense is ass and a half. Ranked 157 in the country. But their defense is top 30 in the nation.
Yeah.
Number 28.
28th in the Ken Palm defensive ranking.
I mean, Jamie Dixon's a good coach. This is not – the big problem for TCU is they're not talented. I mean, this is the least talented TCU team since like the second or third year of Jamie Dixon.
Yeah.
Maybe not right when he took over, but it's been a while since they've been had this little talent.
They got like the Reynolds kids, their only real bucket getter.
Scotty?
No, it's Noah Reynolds.
I had a weird fascination with Scotty Reynolds when I was a kid.
Arkansas, right?
I'm Villanova.
Oh, I think it's Scotty Thurman hit the winning shot to beat Duke in the 94 title game.
Yeah. No, I don't. For some
Before
reason,
you were alive.
Yeah, for some reason, I really liked that Villanova team at the time before I would develop a deep-seated hatred for all things Villanova, which has since passed. The 2022 Final Four relieved me of that. No, for a few years, it was passionate. I had some very not nice things to say about Jay Wright.
To this day, Jay Wright is a harbinger of doom. Like, I remember 2 years ago, he was on the broadcast team for CBS.
Yeah.
When KU had the noon game at home against that might have been last season.
I think it was last
good
season.
TCU team.
Yeah.
And
I think I might have been
TCU
there.
beat the brakes off of Kansas.
Yeah.
Like, I think Bill Self called all of his timeouts in the first half, or at least 3 of them in the first half.
I think that was 2 seasons ago, because wasn't that the game where Eddie Lampkin got hurt?
Did he get hurt against them, or did he get hurt against K-State?
No, he got hurt against KU because I was there.
Okay.
And he limped off, and there was an erroneous report that he had torn his Achilles like 3 minutes after he had gotten injured.
Okay. Yeah. I think I remember what you're talking about now.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, KU should win this game, but it's a road game in the Big 12. So,
yeah, I mean, you never take it for granted, but KU should have a lot more talent than TCU. We'll get Michael Swain's thoughts. He'll join us bottom of the 4 o'clock hour.
For what it's worth, by the by, Bart Torvik, who it's like Ken Pom numbers, but free. So there you go. He has KU by 4.5 in his metric. Also has it as the 4th most fun game of the day.
The fun meter.
Yes, the funalytics is what he calls them. Which honestly, respect.
Yeah.
That's what I care about.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. If I'm gonna turn on a game anymore, I better have fun watching it.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Because a lot more often now, my TV is Miss Rachel YouTube's and my son's Spotify playlist.
Did you have fun? Were you guys either of you guys there 5 years ago?
Yes, indeed. I was there. I was in the building. People forget. You know who was awesome in that game? Christian Brown. Freshman Christian Brown, I think, scored 20, if I remember correctly. But nobody remembers that Christian Brown scored 20 points as a freshman in that game because Silvio De Sousa nearly killed a man with a stool.
Yes.
And I was there.
5 years ago today. Yes. 5 years ago today. The fracas at the Fog.
So it was a blowout. I mean, KU beat that ass. I mean, it was not competitive.
Yeah.
And
really grim K-State team. Yeah.
I have never, ever, a lot of like beat writers, journalists, whatever, they will little inside baseball here for you, will actually leave the arena seating, whether it's football or basketball, a few minutes early so they can get down, get a good spot in the media room, especially they're going to take video of the press conference.
Right.
Happens especially a lot during football. But even during basketball, some people will go down. The game wasn't competitive. Number of people were going down. I never do that or did that, but that game was such an ass whooping. I was packing my stuff. So I'm in my seat and I'm putting my computer away in my bag as the foul is committed to set the whole thing off. So I wasn't actually looking and then heard a loud roar. I turn around and suddenly a brouhaha, a Donnybrook has broken out a few hundred feet in front of me. I did, however, see the stool get raised. All-time moment.
Silvio De Sousa
put the stool in the rafters.
Picked up a stool.
That was nuts.
Yeah, put the stool in the rafter, replace the Final Four banner they had to take down because he took that Adidas money.
Yes.
What a complicated legacy Silvio De Sousa has.
Just awesome.
So good in that regional final against Duke that technically never happened, but like essential in that game.
He was incredible. He was even better against Clemson the game prior.
Yeah, he was.
That half-court alley-oop?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, so
he finished at Chattanooga.
Was it David Sloan who had the breakaway and Silvio's like, yeah, not in our house, pal?
Ooh, man, David.
I just click on the video of the brawl, like from a broadcast perspective on ESPN's YouTube page, and it says, this video may not be suitable for all audiences. Do you wish to watch
stool-related violence?
I thought Fran Fraschilla was going to cry doing the post game.
Oh my gosh. Fran was on the warpath after that game.
Everybody was. Pat Forty wanted Kansas to have to drop basketball, which I think he's wanted that for a lot of years.
Yeah, common Pat Forty take.
Yeah.
Well, let's also not forget, that was during the Jeff Long era.
Yeah.
So everything had to be as chaotic as possible.
Yes.
This was mere months after the acrobatic dancers incident.
Also, the only reason anybody remembers the name of James Love, former Kansas State Wildcat, in those white linen pants came flying off the bench.
I don't know why I remember that David Sloan went to John Logan College before K-State. But I know that for a fact.
John A. Logan.
I have no idea why I remember that.
I didn't remember this until looking at the box score just now. He was K-State's leading scorer in that game.
Probably with what, like
17 points, 5 assists.
I mean,
good game for David.
What was
Sloan.
the final score of that game?
81-60.
Yeah, I mean,
81-59. Well, did they give him a?
No, 81-60 was the final score.
Yeah, I remember Devon Dotson.
Oh yeah, they gave him a free throw.
Dot was kind of on the outskirts of the pile, clearly like, hey, don't mess with my boys, but also I ain't gonna get in trouble for this.
No,
and also Devon is like an extremely favorable 6 feet tall. I wouldn't have wanted to mix it up with the 6'8", 6'10" guys either.
He had a good game, 18 points. Levi Stockard played 14 minutes and did almost nothing. Almost.
K-State rosters are so bad.
Yeah, dude, he started.
Levi Stockard. Man.
Yeah. So yeah, 5 years ago, happy 5-year anniversary to the fracas at the Fog. Silvio De Sousa thought it was hardcore rules. 24/7 hardcore rules applied to the Sunflower
People
Showdown.
wanted to call the cops. Like, we need to charge battery.
And then they arrested Silvio De Sousa for the exact number of games to carry him through the rematch at Bramlage in February.
Suspended, not arrested.
Did I say arrested?
Yeah, Freudian.
Yes. They threw him in the Hooskow. They did.
Man.
For thinking he was Terry Funk. We had some good jokes. That was a fun episode of 5-8 Sports Talk.
That was incredible. That was COVID really ruined the bad boy Jayhawks that year. Between the Snoop Dogg thing, the brawl, the stool, a real bad boy vibe to that KU team.
They had won 16 in a row after they won at Texas Tech on March 7th. And then 3 days later, Rudy Gobert got sick. I don't like talking about it either. I was really looking forward to going to the Final Four in Indianapolis that year. Really looking forward to it. Yeah,
I'm over it. I'll never be over it. I will be holding my great grandkid's hand as I die someday, and I will say, Jaxlyn, I want you to know,
not Jaxlyn,
you
with 2 X's
and your sister Jessamlyn, that KU was going to win the national championship in 2020. It will be my dying breath. I think my wife is really sick of me bringing this up now. Like, honey, it's been 5 years. Please move on. We have a house and a child now. You have more in life to live for than this.
Senior year, Udoka Azubuike. Like, they were going to bring his mom over to see him play.
4 years as a KU player, he did not play in a single Big 12 tournament game.
Has to be the best Jayhawk in the Big 12 tournament era that you would say that about.
Yes, I would say so.
By some distance. We'll talk about more contemporary KU history with Michael Swain of Fog.net coming up in just a little bit.
I don't know if he was at the game.
He would have been still on the Iowa State beat at the time, wouldn't he?
Either that or I think that would have been his first year at Iowa State. I think Michael was 2 years below me in school. We were KU students at the same time. He's just a couple years younger than me. I think he might have been on his first year at Iowa State.
Yeah,
I think you're right about that.
I think he was on the Cyclone beat at the time, but no, we'll
cover Steve Prohm.
Yeah, that was a prize. We'll do What Is Wrong With You later this hour too, but I did want to start with the big game last night, the college football playoff national championship game. In case you missed it, Ohio State, just like in the first year of the 4-team playoff era, they are the first champions of the 12-team playoff era, defeating Notre Dame 34-23. And if you're just hearing that final score for the first time somehow, you might think, oh, wow, that was a lot closer than I thought. Don't be fooled. That was the fakest 11-point game I've ever seen. That was the butt kicking we all foresaw. Ohio State might have let off the accelerator a little bit for about 10 minutes, but there was zero doubt who the better team was and who would win. And you know who that includes among people who had zero doubt who the better team was? Notre Dame. Notre Dame has access to more talent than all but a bare handful of teams at the FBS level. They are unbelievably financially blessed, as it were. They can recruit from anywhere. They have a national footprint, national branding. They're independent, so they get to keep all the money from the playoff when they get in. They don't have to divide it among their conference mates. They've got the big TV deal with NBC. They have more talent on hand than all but like 5 or 6 teams in a given year. And they went into last night thinking we have to play like a service academy to win this football game. Did you see their opening drive? That looked like Army. That looked like Bryson Daly running into the line over and over again.
It actually took more time off the clock than all but 2 Army drives the entire year.
It was Service Academy football.
It screwed up the TV timeout so bad.
It was sick. It was awesome.
I've never seen something derail TV timeouts like this Notre Dame offense did for that first drive.
I thought Steve Angeli was going to have to play their second drive. Like, I didn't know that Riley Leonard was going to be okay for their second possession.
Send him into the line over and over and over and 8-10 minutes and scored. And it was like, that was the path. Like, that was the only way they were going to win the football game, is to do that repeatedly and just keep Ohio State's offense from participating in the football game. What does that tell you? That a program like Notre Dame, with the talent of Notre Dame, with the resources of Notre Dame, they go into the national championship game having to play as Air Force, role play as a service academy to try and win a game. It tells you what we have long known about college football, that when it comes to having the kind of roster to win an expanded playoff or really win a national championship, there's only but like 2 or 3 of those in any given year. And Ohio State is one of 2 or 3 programs in any given year who's going to have a roster like that. So I know that some of the appeal, and like, I know this because I talk to people like who are my friends who aren't like in the media, but they follow college football. And I talk to them and I hear from people like them, more casual college football fans, to like fans who have an interest in their alma mater. And they say, I'm really into the playoff. I'm really into, 12 teams, more games, more high stakes games, more teams with a chance. I really like this. But if you want a Cinderella story in the college football playoff, you got as close as you're ever going to get this year with the number 8 seed winning it all. But that 8 seed is Ohio State. And the adversity that they had to overcome, the adversity that had Kirk Herbstreit, who I know has been through a lot, like personally. I guess it was his wife or his mother who was recently diagnosed with cancer. It was his wife. Yeah. Terrible news.
On top of his son and then his dog.
I know he's been through a lot. But the adversity that Ohio State went through that had Kirk Herbstreit breaking up in tears in the postgame, the adversity that Ohio State went through was not winning the Big Ten, despite spending a reported $20 million in NIL, or losing to a Michigan team that threw for 62 yards at home on their senior day. Like, that's the adversity. That's what Ohio State went through. And I know, like, apparently there really was security outside of Ryan Day's house for like 3 weeks because, again, there's no more unhinged group of people in the world than Ohio State football fans. But, like, if you want a Cinderella story in the college football playoff, that is what it's going to look like. A team that is blessed with that kind of talent that just happened to underachieve a little bit in the regular season. Those are your Cinderellas. Also, one more reminder. Ohio State lost to Michigan. Jack Sawyer gets a ring, but he will never have a pair of gold pants. Never, ever in his entire life. And he will never sleep through the night peacefully for the rest of his life. And I think that's beautiful.
Did you see that their offensive line hadn't had a holding penalty since, like, what was it, week 3 or week 4 when they took on Marshall?
It was was it Ohio State's offensive line or their defensive line?
No, their offensive line
had not been. I thought it was their defensive line had not been held since then.
No, it was their offensive line hadn't committed a holding penalty, been flagged for a holding penalty since then. The last person to do it was Mike Green, NFL draft prospect, now from Marshall.
Marshall mentioned drink.
No, it was definitely, you have it backwards, Spencer. It was the other way around. Ohio State had not drawn a holding flag since Marshall's Logan Osborne held a player in that game. You have it backwards.
Yeah, I do.
It's okay. Your point is well met. Like, that's crazy because they were that good and they weren't really
that was
getting
non-conference
help
play
in that department. Yeah, it's wild stuff. I agree with everything you had to say there. The only hang up with this is that people bought the idea that college football could have parity, which indicates to me that the public has never actually watched college football because it has literally never had it. But Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, or who the Big Ten commissioner, this is going to give everybody a chance. Everybody's got a seat at the table now. No, wrong. Football doesn't work like that. Football is not basketball, where you can just hit a ton of three-pointers and go unconscious for 30 minutes, and that can change the entire landscape of a David versus Goliath matchup. That doesn't work in football. Football, it can happen in a one-game sample. Does not happen over a longer stretch of time because of the physicality, the size, and in college football, the resources that go into it. Historically speaking, and the specific teams have fluctuated over time. In the 40s, Minnesota was a power, right? They are clearly not that anymore.
No.
So certain teams have come in. Clemson has had their moment in the sun. The better part of a decade, more than that, honestly, under Sweeney at this point, where they have been in the upper echelon, 2 national championships.
Clemson also had previously been in the club. They won a national title.
They won it in 1980, yeah. 81. 81 is when they won.
Yeah.
Cheated, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. But they did cheat. So, historically, the entire history of the sport, it has always been dominated by a select few.
A handful of programs.
But the public wants it to be the NFL so badly that we parity with playoffs with more teams. There's a chance for the little guy. Yet, in theory, but that just ignores every ounce of context from the history of the sport.
Had a texter ask on yesterday's show. We were wrapping up the segment, and the texter from the 785, we appreciate your text, 785-272-9429. And if we ever see when this is a good one, we don't get to it right away. We might get to it later, like we are today, with a texter who asked,
tune in every minute.
Yes. Don't ever miss a minute of this show. Schedule your life around us. No, the question was, you don't think the portal and NIL won't eventually open it up for other teams? Well, we've had the portal for the better part of the last 5 years, and it has not really opened it up for anybody new. Like, there's the Champions Club is closed. That, I guess, is what I'm getting at. The Champions Club is closed. Now, will the transfer portal and NIL allow the opportunity for more teams to maybe break through and win a conference championship, to be more upwardly mobile within their conference? Certainly. I think that has worked for, like, Colorado to an extent. That's obviously a unique set of circumstances, but also in the Big 12, it worked for Arizona State. They hit the portal pretty hard. They won. They got to the playoff. They gave Texas a heck of a scare. Texas had more dudes, and they won that game. The Champions Club is closed. You might get to the playoff. You might even win a game in the playoff. But when it comes to crowning a team who is a new national champion, like if there's ever a new member of the club, a first-time national champion, and it isn't Oregon, I'll be dumbstruck.
Do you know who the last new national champion was?
Oh gosh, was Colorado Georgia Tech?
No, more recent than that. But I do not believe you were alive, Spencer. I was barely.
Well, it's Florida, 96,
1996.
Wow.
Florida. That is the last new team to win a national championship. That is crazy. That's going on 30 years. I would argue, to the point from our texter, and as Dan said, appreciate the text message yesterday. I believe that things like the portal and NIL, the way I would phrase it, because I'm in alignment with you on this, Dan, I think that has opened up the upper middle class. Like, I think that's opened up college football suburbia. Like, you can get 2 stories with a finished basement and 2 SUVs and a white picket fence and 2.4 kids. That has Arizona State, perfect example of it. A number of programs, they can now threaten to make the playoffs to win a conference title.
You can go to a really nice public school.
Yep, exactly. 100% agree with that.
So you're not getting.
No, I believe that it is limited. In fact, I would almost argue that the NIL space has shrunk the number of programs. If you have a friend who is a diehard fan of the USC Trojans, a program that should literally never have to even try to get elite talent, go ask them what their favorite program's NIL situation looks like. Because I guarantee you, it is not as rosy as you think it might be.
No.
Go ask an Alabama fan, because you would think Alabama should never have to plead for NIL money, like ever. They do, because according to public, there's no dollar figures out there, and those aren't reliable anyway. But the hubbub about NIL and the SEC is, Georgia's got it. Georgia's fine. LSU's got some, but their whole state has financial problems. That hurts. Alabama, the NIL was tied to Nick Saban. It was not tied to Alabama. And I still think they're in that club. Don't get me wrong. But I think it is going to be limiting because not everybody can spend $20 million on a roster like Ohio State.
Right. And they spent $20 million on the right guys. They went and got a quarterback that was efficient and complemented their weapons.
And good. Like, he is a good quarterback.
And they got Quinshon Judkins the stud and Caleb Downs. They spent smart, but the bulk of that roster is still guys they recruited. At the end of the day, it's still going to be the foundation of your roster is guys that you recruit. Ohio State won largely with guys you recruit. If you could just go buy a roster in football, that's even harder than it is to do in college basketball. That's why we're not talking about the top 10 team in the country, Kansas State Wildcat men basketball team.
Travion Henderson, Ohio State guy, through and through.
Yeah.
Jack Sawyer, truly Ohio State through and through. Jeremiah Smith.
JTT,
Ibuka,
goes to that offensive line. Yeah. You have to be able to get the talent, and access to the talent does not change with the portal and with the NIL. Access to the talent that you build the program on is still going to be concentrated with those same programs. You have a text from 785 that asked, what about UCF's national championship? They didn't really win one. They claimed one. That's the difference. And I respect them for claiming it.
I do respect,
but that is not a national championship.
Yeah, that is a little bit different. But I respect the text.
Yes,
thank
I do.
you.
I do.
They deserve that respect.
We'll take a quick timeout. Come back with what is wrong with you on 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you? Time on 580 Sports Talk. 2 new stories competing today. Try to take down our weekly champion, Gas Person, the guy whose last name is Gas Person, who is robbing gas stations at gunpoint. It's really, really funny.
God, that's
it got
good.
Funnier today. 2 new stories today. I'll go first. We are actually, I'm going to have Spencer go first. Spencer, your story.
Yes.
Hard pivot.
We got to go fast.
It kind of goes back to Gas Person, kind of. There's a little in there. A Pennsylvania woman is accused of chaining her 11-year-old son to a basement fuel tank for hours.
What?
Yeah.
Jeez.
The reason, according to authorities, was because he ate too many hot dogs. Chastity, spelled with 2 Z's in the middle. Candelario now faces charges of false imprisonment, unlawful restraint, and endangering the welfare of a child. The little boy is the victim. He was 11 years old and told investigators this type of punishment was not out of the ordinary.
Okay, I'm going to stop right now. This isn't funny.
Yeah,
this is child abuse.
Oh my God! Yeah, hell, immediately.
I didn't say it was funny. I was referring to the fact that there's a callback to gas and
Because
oil.
he was linked to a fuel tank.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, man, that's terrible. I love hot dogs.
Yeah.
Let the kid eat his glizzies, man. Anyhow, for my story today, 2 people from Oregon were arrested for reportedly impersonating firefighters and using an illegitimate fire truck in the Palisades fire evacuation zone. According to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, police officers patrolling the area last Saturday noticed a fire truck that did not appear to be legitimate. Sheriff's deputies made contact with the individuals as they attempted to enter an evacuation zone. The occupants claimed to be from Roaring River Fire Department in Oregon, which does not exist. Deputies also noticed the individuals were both wearing turnout gear and Cal Fire t-shirts and had helmets and radios in their possession. Both suspects, 31-year-old Dustin Nell and 44-year-old Jennifer Nell, were arrested for impersonating a firefighter and entering an evacuation zone. Dustin Nell has a criminal history in Oregon for criminal mischief and, get this, arson.
Jeez.
We have an arsonist posing as a firefighter.
Man. All right, I have to pick this story by default.
Yes.
Because the other person is just so horrible. But I'm going to stick with gas person. I want gas person moving on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm outvoted. Gas person advances to tomorrow on What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain joins us next for Jayhawk Weekly.
Visit NoTimeToWait.com. Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
WIBW Topeka.
I can't imagine there being any place that's better to coach or play at than the University of Kansas.
The goal is to win championships. Pure and simple. One day at a time.
That's what made a difference today in the game.
That's all. That's fine.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
What a scene in Lawrence, Kansas.
We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Michael Swain of Fog.net. 24/7 Sports covers the Kansas Jayhawks and joins us for Jayhawk Weekly every Tuesday here on 580 Sports Talk. You can check Michael out on social media at mswain247, and you should be a VIP subscriber to 24/7 Sports so you can get Michael's outstanding inside info on all things Jayhawks. Well, Michael, the Jayhawks are 1-0 in the Flory Badunga starts in place of the injured KJ Adams era. What did you think of how things looked with Badunga in the starting lineup on Saturday in the Sunflower Showdown?
I think they looked all right. And I think the interesting part about Saturday's game is K-State is almost like the perfect matchup for KU because of the way they play with, Gasson and Coleman Hawkins. And I felt like that part of it fit, right? You watch Flory and Hunter, and they can play together. And Bill Self has mentioned this multiple times, but, Flory and Hunter is one of KU's best tandems. Why exactly is that? I think a part of it's because the energy Flory brings, and it almost frees up Hunter a little bit. But it's something that Self has said a couple times, and I think you got to see some of that. And I think it also showed that when, Flory and Hunter weren't on the floor together, that things really dropped off for KU, because I think the starting lineup itself was plus 22 in the game, and it was a game KU won by 10 points. So it just goes to show you the big drop-off KU had, I think, because of the matchup issue. I think we'll learn a lot more about the starting lineup, or just how that Flory and Hunter combination works without KJ tomorrow night, because TCU is a very different type of team than K-State. They don't play two bigs. They play a lot more your 4 out around Ernst Uday. So I wouldn't say skeptical of the starting lineup. I just have my reservations that you're playing a foul-happy guy in Flory, and you only have 2 big men that are available right now. So I'm really interested to see how KU tries to continue to progress in tomorrow night's game when they play a different type of team.
I had thought they might go, instead of going with Badunga, with either Rylan Griffin or AJ Storr in that spotting role. I can't say I'm surprised it wasn't Storr, though Storr didn't up playing his most minutes in a Big 12 game this year. He played more minutes than he did against anybody since the Brown game. And though he had 7 points, he finished with a -11, and Rylan Griffin didn't do anything, almost literally didn't do anything in that game against Kansas State on Saturday. What is KU going to need more from them? Because they stand to both see a bit of a bump in minutes with KJ on the shelf.
Yeah, I think it's energy. And you mentioned that. Like, I had the same thought after the game, like looking at it, like, man, Rylan Griffin didn't do a whole lot. Well, then Bill Self on Hawk Talk last night says that Rylan was sick. And then Rylan just didn't tell anybody he was sick. So it makes a lot more sense when you look at it from that perspective, that, yeah, he wasn't feeling super well. So, it's why he maybe didn't have the energy. But I think it genuinely, guys, it just comes down to energy. And I think you see it at times when Rylan's out there and he's playing aggressive, like he did in that kind of couple game stretch against UCF, Arizona State, and Cincinnati. Like, when he comes out aggressive, I think he offers KU so much, right? His shot creation coming off screens has been better than I expected. His 3-point shooting has been about in line with last year. He's at 37% right now. He was at 39% last year at Alabama. So I think Rylan, when he's been on the floor, his production numbers are lining up pretty closely to what he did at Alabama. He's just shooting the ball a little bit more efficiently from 2. So for him, it just comes down to the energy and being able to stay on the floor and doing those extra things that earn you extra minutes from Bill Self. And then, look, from AJ Storr, I think it just comes down to a couple of things that, obviously the energy part, but I think on offense, he can't have the ball stick. I think at times when he gets the ball, it's dribble, 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 decide what to do. And I think KU wants him to be much more of a catch the ball and go, like a 0.5 player, as that Bill Self called it, where you get it, and in half a second you made a decision of what you're going to do. And so I think that for him offensively, look, defensively, he's just got to be locked in. I thought he showed some signs of progress against K-State, and if he continues to play like that on defense, I think he's going to have the opportunity to play more minutes. So I think those are 2 guys that I think if you look at this week, KU plays TCU, which has a 6'7" man, and then you play Houston, which has 2 6'8" players in their front court. It's the type of week that should fit a 4-round 1 type of concept, right? If you're going to play with Rylan and AJ, and it's going to be up to them to earn those minutes, because if they don't, Bill Self is going to have no problem putting Flory out there with Hunter Dickinson.
Michael Swain is our guest. He covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net, which is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Go be a VIP at 24/7. If you're not, that's the best way to get all the best insight into what's going on at KU. Michael joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Tuesday at this time for Jayhawk Weekly. Your pal and ours, Michael, Derek Johnson of the Locked On Jayhawks podcast this week, had a stat about how Saturday's game against K-State was both the most efficient offensive game of the year for KU in terms of points per possession, while also being the least efficient defensive game in terms of points per possession. Not surprising that no KJ Adams led to a worse defensive effort. Without KJ, how good can this defense be? Or rather, how much better than that performance can this defense be without Adams?
Yeah, I think the defense can be better because, and this is something Hunter Dickinson talked about post-game, like, he said they pulled their foot off the gas, which, look, and I think broadly about the team, maybe not having that exact killer instinct that you'd like to see. But I think equally for KU, look, if games are close, I think you expect the defensive intensity to be a lot better. And I think that Bill Self made a good point. When KJ's on the floor defensively, he makes up when other guys make mistakes because of his athleticism and the amount of times, right? Like how many times we've seen KJ come from the weak side to block a shot. And then you're like, oh my God, that was a great play from KJ. And you're not looking at the guy on the perimeter who got beat, And so I think KJ makes up for some of that stuff. And I think KU doesn't have that type of eraser on the defensive end, when KJ's not out there. So I think it's going to come down to, again, Rylan and AJ. Can you go out there and just guard your guy? Just stay in front of him. You don't have to be Superman getting steals and blocks and stuff. You just got to stay in front of your man, play good team defense, because I think when KU has played connected on defense, they've been pretty good. It's when they get disjointed and then the hard hedges look ugly and then teams are getting dribble drives that's when things start to fall apart. So I think for KU without KJ, it's just going to come down to, can those guys on the perimeter, can they guard their yard, as Bill Self likes to say.
Speaking of advanced metrics, I was the one who was speaking of them. Hunter Dickinson is generally considered a poor defender. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn by saying that, but I know you saw this post on social media, maybe X, the Everything app, Everything's Happening on X earlier this week, about Hunter Dickinson and the fact that he might not actually be as bad defensively as people think he is, because every year of his college career, his teams are better with him on the floor than they are with him off the floor defensively, including Michigan and now 2 years at KU. So where do you land on the defensive prowess of one Hunter Dickinson? Do you think he's a traffic cone? Do you think he's better than he gets credit for? Somewhere in the middle? Where do you land on Big Hunt?
I think with all things, right, the answer is somewhere in the middle. I think that on the one hand, having a 7-foot guy at center is going to help you defensively. And I think Hunter, to his credit, I think does a really good job of contesting shots without fouling. If you look at his foul numbers, he does a very, very good job of staying out of foul trouble while also having a decent block rate. I think anybody that's watched KU would say that times when it gets ugly is when teams force KU into the hedge and recover game. And that is when you see Hunter kind of running around on the, between the perimeter and the paint. And look, this has been a issue for KU over the last 5, 6, 7 years, right? It happened with Dave McCormick. It's happened with Hunter. Like, it happens with KU's big men because of the way that Bill Self wants to guard ball screens. And I think it speaks to the numbers speak to how solid KU is defensively. While those moments are going to stick in your head because they don't look right? You're seeing a 7-foot guy kind of run around when you don't usually see that from guys of Hunter's size. So I think KU's defense, of course, is better with Hunter out there. I would also say, if you have Hunter Dickinson on your team, there's a very good chance your backup center is not going to be great, because a great backup center isn't going to want to play 8 to 10 minutes a game. And so KU is very fortunate to have Flory. He is still very young and still very raw. And I think you see that rawness at times on the defensive end of the floor. So I come down on the middle with a slight slant towards, Hunter helps KU on defense, because I think he does a great job of not fouling. He does a good job of contesting shots and making opponents feel him. And look, if you're driving towards the rim and you see a 7-foot guy standing there with his arms straight up and you have a pretty good idea he's not going to foul, you're going to alter your own body to when you shoot the ball, and that's going to make you less efficient. So I think overall, it's a really interesting number and really interesting data point pointing to a guy that's played a lot of college basketball.
And I think a perfect encapsulation of your point about backup centers. If you were content being a backup center as a really talented player, Zuby Ejiofor would still be at KU and not at St. John's right now. I think that's a perfect example of that. As we look ahead to this week, you already mentioned it, TCU coming up tomorrow night, Houston over the weekend. I have to ask this. This is the 5-year anniversary of the brawl at Allen Fieldhouse, Silvio Stool game. Were you on the Iowa State beat at that point?
No, I was a senior. Funny story about that, actually. So I was writing our game recap when I was the intern for Fog.net, and I missed the brawl. I was still sitting in the seats, and I just was so focused on, I got to get this story done. And I look up, and there's just crowds of people behind the basket. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And then I go back down to the press conference room. And I go to my old boss, Scott Chase, and he's like, "You didn't mention the brawl in your story." I'm like, "What brawl? What are you talking about?" And then he's like, "Oh," and then I had to rewatch it and stuff. So yeah, that's my story on the brawl.
That's an incredible Scott Chasen story. Scott, friend of the program as well, but that is a very funny Scott story.
Yeah, so I think I know what point you're getting at, though. So KU misses KJ Adams, like David McCormick missed games. And I am very interested to see if KU can evolve from this, because it is something where I think anyone that's watched KU would say, man, it feels like KJ Adams plays a few too many minutes. And look, he's playing about 30 minutes a game this year. Can KU evolve to a place where KJ can play 25 to 20 minutes a game? And that's going to come down to Rylan Griffin and AJ Storr progressing. And I think it's a really interesting connection that I think a lot of people have made now, where you look back at that year and KU really took off when KU went away from the two big lineup with David and Doak, and the way that things progressed from there. I think this is the chance for that to happen, but it's going to be up to the players to take advantage of it, like Isaiah Moss and Christian Brown did at the time.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. I have to ask one more question of you, and it's not like the most serious question I've ever asked you, but checking out the recruiting news over at Fog.net, it appears that Kansas is preparing for a visit from a football recruit by the name of Drayden Punt. Unfortunately, he's not a punter. What's the deal? I thought nominative determination not a thing here. What's going on?
Yeah, he's a guy that may develop into someone that forces punts. I'm really interested. So, he's a guy from Iowa.
A guy from Iowa named Punt?
I know, and he doesn't punt, right? He was meant to go play for Kirk Ferentz. No, so I mean, well, he's 6'7", like 220. I'm interested to see how he fits in. He's ranked right now as a defensive lineman. I think some schools maybe view him as a tight end. Like, he's someone that is a very intriguing prospect. But let's be real here. If he is not playing on defense and or offense, and also punting, I think it's a great failure in college football.
I've been lied to.
A guy named Punt from Iowa looking askance at his home state school. That feels like ignoring destiny. But Michael Swain has the coverage of that and all things Kansas Jayhawks over at Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Michael, it's always a pleasure when we do Jayhawk Weekly. We will do it again next week. Thanks for the time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next week.
That is Michael Swain. We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk, come back and wrap up this second hour of the program next. 4:55 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan, Brendan, Spencer. Thanks again to Michael Swain for joining us. If you miss any of our show, you can always watch the archive video stream on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. You can listen to the podcast as well. It's on our website, 580wibw.com. We're also on Spotify. If you search 580 Sports Talk, you'll find us on Spotify. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. If you give us less than 5 stars, if I may borrow the line from Bomani Jones, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater.
Follow us as well.
Follow us everywhere. Listen to us all the time.
Yes.
Never stop engaging with 580 Sports Talk.
Yes.
KU and K-State both on tomorrow. No Super Tuesday game, no big Monday game for either this week. What's on the TV tonight?
Tonight?
You have a good bet for us tonight.
I sure don't. I got over under 8:05 my son to fall asleep.
I'm going to take the over.
I'll take the over.
Because if I have to suffer through a child that won't sleep, you do too.
Hey, listen. Look, I was up at midnight last night. That's all I'll tell you. My wife and I both.
I would never use a different sports book, but if I did use one that featured kings who draft sometimes,
the one run by Hungarian mob bosses?
Yeah. They had a little special last night that I used on a bet today. So I've got BYU straight up money line against Colorado.
Colorado stinks.
Yeah, they're ass.
BYU's having a rough year, though, too. A little bit of a surprise. I thought they'd be in better shape.
Metrics like them, though.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, look at who their coach is and what he wants to do and how they play.
Right.
I'm not super surprised.
It's a warm-up year for the AJ Dibanza experience there in Provo.
11-6, and they're still 45th in KenPom, and they are 32nd in T-Rank, Bart Torvik's number. So, yeah, I got BYU. Colorado is butt.
Yeah, they've really been winless in the Big 12. They are not, however, the lowest-ranked team in the KenPom in the Big 12. K-State and Oklahoma State are both ranked lower.
Well, that was a given. K-State would be.
K-State, not lowest, though?
Not lowest, no. Colorado is 92nd. K-State is 96th. Oklahoma State is 105th.
Yuck.
Jeez. And they beat the brakes off of K-State, and they're still 105th.
Imagine being worse than DePaul.
I'd rather not.
Just consider it.
Coming up in the final hour of the show, what scares you the most about the Bills? Plus some way too early college football top 25s and our 580 Sports Talk headlines coming up next. Sports Talk, hour number 3, final hour of this Tuesday edition of the show. Welcome in. Thanks for being with us. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, and Spencer Dupuis, the Power Trio, rocking with you here on this Tuesday afternoon on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online worldwide at 580WIBW.com. And, of course, we are in living color on our video stream. You can watch us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel. You can also watch on Facebook at WIBW News. However you are consuming the program, we appreciate you being along. If you're watching on YouTube, whether you're in the web browser or on a mobile device, jump in the live chat. We'd love to hear from you. We love when you interact with your fellow listeners as well as us, your humble hosts, throughout the program. You can also text the program. 785-272-9429 is the number. Shoot us a text, 785-272-9429.
I don't know that I would say I'm humble.
No?
I'm pretty great.
Well, you are. But I say that.
You two can be as humble as you want to be.
Now, I'm just going for alliteration, I guess.
Sure.
Could
go hungry hosts. I am very hungry.
Man, the 5 o'clock hour every day, that is extremely true. Yeah. This is about when my mind starts wandering toward, like, what are my wife and I going to have for dinner tonight?
I am having leftover lasagna.
Okay.
I'm very excited about
I'm having a
pasta cake. That's some people's choice.
That sounds delicious. Phrasing it like that makes it sound even better.
No, false.
Garlic parm, potatoes, in a skillet.
Okay.
Ooh, that sounds good.
We'll see if we end up cooking tonight. I did chicken parm last night. Little chicken cutlet. Some roasted zucchini, little ciabatta toast. Tonight,
God, I love a good ciabatta.
Tonight we've got the stuff for steak Phillies, but we may go out. I'm not sure yet.
Ciabatta or focaccia? Which type of bread would you prefer? I probably lean focaccia, but a good ciabatta is hard to beat.
Yeah, I think I like focaccia. It's a little more tender. Something like I guess a higher floor for focaccia. Mm-hmm. Like bad ciabatta is like you're eating a wrestling mat.
I suppose. Slightly less ringworm, hopefully.
Hopefully. But yeah, like I had ciabatta toast last night. It was very good. Very good. Little diced the garlic, melted with the butter, brushed it on the bread, put it in the oven for about 5 minutes. Came out nice, crispy, good flavor. Chicken parm were outstanding. I've stepped up my game. I know they're calling me an every plate merchant in the streets. I've heard that they're referring to me as a system quarterback when it comes to cooking. But look, I'm knocking them out of the park. Is all I'm saying. I'm happy. My wife's happy.
Is there
it's all that matters.
Another random question Tuesday here. Is there a staple that you have every week?
No. The only thing we
not
try
weekly. No.
Only thing we try to do every week is like usually go out with my wife's family. She's we go and try and get together with they're my in-laws, and usually that happens on Tuesday, but it can't happen every Tuesday. We have kids now, stuff happens. But that would be the only thing that we try to do every single week. There's not like one thing, it's Wednesday, so we're having veal or anything like that.
Imagine having weekly
veal. That's outrageous.
Imagine being a zillionaire.
Yeah, I work in radio. I don't have weekly veal money. I can promise you that.
God, that sounds so good.
A couple texts from the 785. Again, you can text the program, 785-272-9429. This texter says, lasagna is always better second serve. I think a lot of pasta dishes that's true about. Like, it doesn't always happen because sometimes I go to Paisanos, for example, here in Topeka. If I go hungry, I'm not leaving with leftovers. But if I leave with leftovers, I always enjoy it the next day.
See, I love leftovers.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law and her boyfriend were in town for a week to visit the baby, and they were saying I don't know about amazed, but they were very surprised that we eat leftovers all the time. Like my wife will make a big meal, and then we'll eat leftovers 2 or 3 times. They don't they just don't eat leftovers.
Okay.
Crazy.
So that's like the convulging of minds. When my girlfriend moved in, she's like, what are we gotta have this day, this day, this day. And I'm like, why don't you make this and then we can have it for a few days?
Yep. Absolutely. No, I
like then there's no cooking every night.
Yeah, leftovers is the go-to. We have so many things. Like we probably don't have to cook for like 6 days. We just have meals.
Like I usually cook, like if we're doing burgers, but then we have leftover ground beef for tacos, like meat.
Yeah.
Usually I'll cook that all in one night.
Hell yeah.
Because there's no sense in leaving the ground beef to get gross.
I agree.
Yeah. No, well,
I think I prefer lasagna hot.
Yeah.
Like original hot.
Yeah.
As opposed, see, now our meals, my wife made a ton of meals and then put them in our deep freezer right before the baby was born.
Smart.
With the expectation that I am not going to want to cook.
No.
And she does most of our cooking, so she was spot on about that. But I like it first serve.
So we started doing the every plate not long after Asher was born, and pretty simple recipes. The idea behind it too, which is nice, is that you don't have leftovers, but you just have enough for a single serving meal that will fill you up, and you're not overeating, and you don't have stuff occupying a bunch of space in your fridge. And frankly, I'm 38 years old. It's about time I actually learned how to cook beyond I'm gonna throw some chicken on this grill pan. Actually, a little skill, a little savvy, a little game in the kitchen. It was about time I learned how to do things like caramelize onions, or combine flavors, things like that. So we've been doing that for a while, and then so we usually get 3 of those. That's 3 weeks. We usually go out once or twice, and then we might do something that's a bigger recipe that we'll have for multiple nights. Like my wife does a dump potato soup that we do around potato soup, or maybe a pot pie, or I'll do something in the crock pot.
Olivia just made cream and potato soup.
That sounds good. Now
it was great for lunch.
To answer your question, Spencer, currently no, because my wife's a great cook, and we like to mix things up, but we'll do the leftover thing. Previously, I used to eat a can of tuna for dinner 3 nights a week. Well, it was usually 2 or 3 cans.
I make burgers once a week.
Yeah, I just eat them all the time.
Well, I love a hamburger, but typically Friday night after high school basketball, that's what I go and get
that's true.
See, that's what I've done is I've started making them so then I won't go out to eat.
No,
because if I make something I like, then I don't go out to eat.
The other thought process behind every play too is we could eat good and not have to leave the house.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that. Another text from 785. I don't understand people who won't eat leftovers. So
I agree.
I've never understood that either. Yeah, starving people in China who would want that food.
Yeah,
right?
Mr. Moneybags.
Also from the 785, y'all got to stop. LOL. I'm hungry now. Apologies.
Me too, friend. I'm starving.
Gabe's got my back in the YouTube comments. Shout out to Gabe. It says Lucero hamburgers. Yes, I do. That's my brother-in-law.
Oh.
Shout out to Gabe.
What's up, Gabe?
Gabe?
Thanks for tuning in today on the YouTube. Appreciate you. Appreciate you having my back.
Man, burger does sound
good. He was maybe driving around or something and heard it, and he said, I gotta go into the Twitter or I gotta go into YouTube and defend him.
I know we have to get to headlines. I know we do, but I do have to check in with Spencer because I have been telling him for months to go to Skinny's during the coaches show on Thursday night. The Washburn basketball coaches show will be back on Thursday night again this week. It's also wing night at Skinny's. Did I steer you wrong?
No, you steered me perfect in the right direction.
Absolutely delicious.
The only thing is it was too loud in there and we were getting ready to leave and we wanted Olivia wanted a water and the waitress brought her over another seltzer.
Kind of water. Yeah,
but
it was a good crowd. It was a good crowd up tonight.
I'll tell you what, they're Washburn's got some A1 fans.
I'm telling you, they
do. Big time fans. You can see them just waiting to talk to the coach. You know they're big time fans when they want to talk to the coach.
Speaking of Washburn, why don't we start our 580 Sports Talk headlines there, shall we? Couple of local headlines, hyper local headlines that we'll get to before we get to some NFL coaching stuff and some other news. Washburn's still number 1.
First time ever, multiple weeks consecutively as the number 1 ranked team in the nation. And they have now doubled their previous total number of weeks as number 1. It was 2 non-consecutive weeks back in 92, and now back-to-back weeks. 15 of the 16 first-place votes went to Washburn this week. 1 vote went to Damon out of Western New York. They are also undefeated at 14-0. I am certain that whoever represents that region in the coaches' polls who voted for them to make the region look better. Washburn is the best team in the country. I don't want to hear an argument otherwise.
17-0 and rolling in the early portion of the MIAA schedule. Again, they're back in action tomorrow at Northwest Missouri State. Also local headline here, Kansas Shrine Bowl Hall of Fame announcing its 2025 Hall of Fame class. Induction ceremony will take place May 7th in Manhattan at the Bill Snyder Family Stadium, the Shamrock Plaza. Legendary Silver Lake head coach C.J. Hamilton, a 5-time Shrine Bowl head coach of the East team in 77, 85, 86, 03, and 04, is one of 4 inductees. Also, Hanover standout Kent Sedlacek, who was an all-star in 1979, former Abilene star and K-Stater Colin Sexton, who was an all-star in 2012, and current Washburn offensive coordinator Dane Simino, who was a star at Salina Sacred Heart as well. Great player, Salina Sacred Heart.
Correct me if I'm
West
wrong.
All-Star in 2007.
And also went on to be a great Washburn Ichabod.
Yes, indeed. And a very good indoor football player, too.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Hamilton just went into another, or will be inducted in another Hall of Fame, right?
It's the Acacia Hall of Fame. Yes,
Acacia, yes. I knew his name from
I was trying to rack my brain.
Yeah.
Which one isn't he in?
Yeah.
Like,
every single Hall of Fame in the station of CJ.
Which one hasn't put him in? He won 447 games. Oh my God, in 47 years. Unbelievable. You look at it and the mind boggles what CJ Hamilton did. So those are the Shrine Bowl Hall of Famers for 2025. So congratulations to particularly those with Topeka ties or area ties, CJ Hamilton and Dane Simino.
Yeah.
First headline, Brendan.
All right, first headline for me. Let's take a ride on the coaching carousel, shall we? A few different pieces of news from around the coaching world today. We will start with one coach who is not going anywhere. That is Kevin O'Connell. According to Ian Rappaport and other NFL insiders, O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings have agreed in 2 terms that will keep him in Minnesota. Agreed in principle, that's the word I was looking for. To keep him in Minnesota for years to come. It is expected to be a multi-year, near top of market deal. Also, I got to make sure I get his name right. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the GM of the Vikings. He is also expected to get a deal. Those two will be tied together for the long haul. The only analysis of this is, of course, Mike Florio was on a rampage. He doesn't have a contract yet. He could be a free agent for next season. He's got to get a contract. You're an idiot, Florio. Shut up. God, stop putting your gossip rag and learn to report for once in your life. But no, of course, Kevin O'Connell is going to get an extension from the Minnesota Vikings. No duh.
I think he's a top 5 coach in the NFL. Reed, comfortably, number 1 with a bullet. And then I put O'Connell up there with Campbell. And I put him up there with
McVay.
McVay for sure. And
LaFleur, Shanahan, Sirianni.
You can argue for any of those guys, but
Sirianni might end up in a second Super Bowl in 3 years, and they still might fans still want to.
Nobody
fire
likes him. Yeah, he's not very likable sort.
No, it's pretty crazy. All right, from one offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell to another, an old face returning home for the 3rd time. Josh McDaniels is being hired by the New England Patriots to be their offensive coordinator. That was reported a little bit earlier. This one wasn't quite as much an open secret as Mike Vrabel to be the head coach there, but also this is not really surprising to anyone. 6 times a Super Bowl champion as an assistant coach for New England. It is now Josh McDaniels' turn to try to help Drake May evolve into the quarterback New England hopes that he will become, and that I frankly believe that he will become. I think there's a lot of different ways to view this hire. Josh McDaniels is one of the all-time most unlikable coaches in football. Just an extremely unlikable person who screwed over his cohorts multiple times, which is gross, to be frank with you.
Mm-hmm. Again, not a super likable guy. Kind of a little Sirianni to him.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I'd honestly say even worse, to be honest with you. The other part of it, though, is he's a really good offensive coach, and he has done a lot of good over the course of his career when he's been a coordinator, not as a head coach. This is a big improvement from Alex Van Pelt. That is the big thing for Drake May. McDaniels might be a jerk, but it is a big step. Even if he's just fine, that is a massive step up from actively bad as an offensive coordinator a year ago. That's going to help Drake May. It's a good hire in that regard.
You know what they say? Who says you can't go home again and again and again?
And again and again and over again.
Yeah. I mean, that might just be water finding its level as far as what he's good at is being an offensive coordinator. And there's no shame in that. We said it before. There are a lot of guys who are really good coordinators who sometimes you don't get to drive the bus and honk the horn. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're just better off being the navigator.
Yeah. No.
Maybe
make a lot of money doing that.
Maybe he's one of those guys. Yeah. More coaching news, Spencer.
Yes, the Jets are expected to name their head coach and GM together. I've been seeing multiple reports by multiple NFL insider writers, personalities that have a skin in the game, that including Jets' own senior writer for The Athletic covering the Jets, Zach Rosenblatt, that the Jets will hire Aaron Glenn as their head coach, and now former Commanders assistant GM Lance Newmark and 26-year Lions personnel exec.
Wow. That dude watched a lot of bad football.
Yeah. But it appears that they're going to pair Glenn together with Newmark, who were together last year and the few years in Detroit.
Good for Aaron Glenn. I think he's earned this opportunity.
Nothing's official yet, but that's all the signs are pointing to
if he does get the opportunity, good for him, I guess.
This morning the report was he had his interview first in New York, and they were not going to let him out of the building. That was the wording of the initial reports. I think Aaron Glenn can be a good head coach. Now, the concern is that he will just get Jets stink all over him. He played for the Jets and is a good NFL player, and I think he's going to be a good head coach. Guys really respond to him. The Jets should probably steer into what they are good at, and that's defense and their defensive roster. Now, granted, they tried to do that with Robert Saleh. It did not work. There were also a lot of other reasons why it did not work with Robert Saleh. I think this is a good hire, though. Obviously, it's going to make a big difference who their offensive coordinator is going to be. It is also very important to find out who their quarterback is going to be. I do not think it will be Aaron Rodgers. I think he is going to retire, frankly. But I can't see them bringing him back. I think they're going to try anew or try for a free agent or something. Hire a good offensive coordinator. You just start fresh. That's my expectation. Can we get to the Dallas headline here too?
Yes,
please.
Please
Get to this Cowboy note.
The Cowboys are likely going to hire Brian Schottenheimer.
I would say not likely, but it is
trending toward it could be a possibility.
He's the betting favorite right now. Brian Schottenheimer is the betting favorite.
That's outrageous.
To become the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That is so funny. I can't believe it.
What is Jerry doing?
So that does make me think that the report that the Cowboys were shocked McCarthy decided to walk, that makes me feel like that is true. Being like, wait a minute, what? We thought you were just going to hang around until we decided to come to you. And Mike McCarthy said, no, I'm going to go do something else. Mike McCarthy's going to have options. Yeah. He's getting a second interview with the Saints, I believe, or at least a first interview with the Saints. Brian Schottenheimer sounds just like an emergency. Like, okay, let's just keep the band together as best as we can because we thought we were keeping McCarthy and now we're not. This will not work. It will not work.
It will be a disaster. It will be a very predictable disaster. Kind of, the same vein of like a Jason Garrett and frankly a Mike McCarthy.
Yep.
Although at least McCarthy had the head coaching bona fides.
Well, and at least Garrett had been with the franchise as a backup forever. I mean, he was very much a cowboy.
Yeah. Brian Schottenheimer was just a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels like it's trending toward disaster. We'll wrap up the 580 Sports Talk headlines with the breaking news from the Baseball Writers Association of America. 3 new members of the Baseball Hall of Fame were named and announced just moments ago. Welcome to Cooperstown. Ichiro, CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner, all of whom received the requisite 75% of the 394 ballots cast by the Baseball Writers for the 2025 Hall of Fame election. Ichiro received 393 of the 394 votes. One person left him off the ballot. That means only one unanimous Hall of Famer still in history. There's only ever been one unanimous Hall of Famer, Mariano Rivera. Who's in the news for maybe being a dirtbag.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, him and his wife for being accused of maybe covering up a sexual assault at a camp that they ran. Yeah,
gosh, that's awful.
Yeah, so yeah, that guy's unanimous, but Ichiro, one guy gonna say, well, if Willie Mays wasn't unanimous, get over yourself,
and
Baseball Writers.
The thing is, I have no problem with Mariano Rivera being unanimous.
As a player, yeah, sure.
Well,
all of these guys should be.
Well, yeah. Ken Griffey Jr. should have been. Greg Maddux should have been. All these guys should have been. Take the vote away. First of all, there do not need to be 394 people who vote for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who vote for it who aren't
overinflated.
active baseball writers.
It's like guys who are covering golf or are out of journalism entirely. Stop it.
Yeah, forfeit the right.
Ichiro did not join Major League Baseball until he was 27 years old. So you can argue at least part of his physical peak was spent in Japan. He was still an MVP as Rookie of the Year, a 10-time All-Star, 3 Silver Sluggers, 2 batting titles, and 10 times won the Gold Glove.
Yeah.
And he did not begin his Major League Baseball career, all caps MLB, until he was 27 years old. Give me a break.
Yeah, to say that that's not a Hall of Famer or because you're trying to protect some kind of standard, you take it too seriously. And that's why, like, the best players of an entire generation aren't in, but that's another topic that I usually get wound up about. Let's not do that. Let's celebrate the guys who got in today. Let's start with Ichiro, the Japanese-born sensation, who was the MVP and the Rookie of the Year on the 116-win 2001 Mariners, the start of a Major League career that saw him bat a lifetime .311 with 3,089 hits. Of course,
America.
That's American hits. If you add his Japanese total, Ichiro is indeed the true hit king. He led Major League Baseball in hits 7 times, including 5 straight years from 2006 to 2010. His 262 hits in 2004 is an all-time single-season record. You mentioned the 2 batting titles in 2001 and 2004. Also won 3 Silver Sluggers, 10 Gold Gloves, was named an All-Star 10 times. Ichiro Suzuki on the ballot for the first time this year, a Hall of Famer. Also on the ballot for the first time and making the Hall of Fame, left-handed pitcher CC Sabathia, formerly of the Cleveland Indians, Milwaukee Brewers, and New York Yankees. CC Sabathia, in his 19 years in the bigs, won 251 games with a 3.74 earned run average. A note that is the highest for a left-hander in the Hall of Fame. But obviously, the 2000s, different game they were playing in the 60s and the 20s, and so on and so forth. In Sabathia's Major League career, he was named an All-Star 6 times, won the Cy Young Award with Cleveland in 2007, helping pitch them to the brink of an American League pennant. Also got Milwaukee into the playoffs in 2008 after being acquired midseason in a trade, going 11-2 with a 1.65 ERA in 17 starts. Just 17 starts as a Brewer. That was good enough to earn him 5th in the Cy Young vote in the National League. After that, signed with the Yankees, helped pitch them to a title in 2009, twice led the league in wins in 2009 and in 2020, and struck out 3,093 batters. CC Sabathia is a Hall of Famer. In his 10th and last eligible year on the ballot, Billy Wagner, left-handed reliever, is into the Hall of Fame. Former Astro, Philly, Met, Red Sox, and Brave. Billy Wagner has an argument that he is the most dominant left-handed pitcher ever. Here's the argument: a 2.31 earned run average, 11.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, a whip, walks plus hits divided by innings pitched, of less than 1. That is the best of any Hall of Famer. Billy Wagner never led the league in saves, but racked up 422 of them in his 16-year career. The fun fact about Billy Wagner is this: he is a natural right-hander. When he was a kid, he broke his right arm, found out he could throw really hard with his left arm, and never stopped throwing left-handed. And very few ever threw the ball harder than Billy Wagner did in his prime. A 7-time All-Star, a Rolaids Relief Award winner as well. Billy Wagner into the Hall of Fame. Just missing out, Royal great Carlos Beltran, 70% of the vote in his 3rd time on the ballot. It looks like he is trending towards enshrinement. Andruw Jones, 66% of the vote in his 8th out of 10 eligible years on the ballot. Chase Utley, just shy of 40%, his 2nd year, big jump for him. A-Rod and Manny Ramirez have kind of stalled out around 37, 34%. A jump for Andy Pettit this year up to 28%. Felix Hernandez in his 1st year on the ballot, 21%. Falling off of the ballot, all of these players were in their 1st year of eligibility, but will not return to next year's ballot. Ian Kinsler, Russell Martin, Brian McCann, Troy Tulowitzki, Curtis Granderson, and Adam Jones, Carlos Gonzalez, Hanley Ramirez, Fernando Rodney, and Ben Zobrist, the latter 3 of whom did not receive a vote. Nobody voted for Ben Zobrist.
Oh, come on. Someone's got to give him 1.
I'm just glad 4 people voted for Troy Tulowitzki. I would have been really sad if he hadn't gotten a vote. So,
I think, was this the final year for my guy, Mark Burley, or does he have 1 more?
Mark Burley has 5 more years
I thought
on the ballot.
Okay, I got confused. He did an interview on a Chicago radio station a week or so ago, and they asked him about it. And he straight up said, look, I'm very proud of my career. I do not belong in the Hall of Fame. My great honor is getting to be on the ballot for 5 years. Like that's a really big deal to me, which is so Mark Burley.
Yeah.
That's just so extremely him.
You know, there's going to be a reevaluation of pitchers in this era with CeCe Sabathia getting in and Andy Pettitte seeing his support increase. Because if you want to say, well, CeCe Sabathia was a big game pitcher, Andy Pettitte was the big game pitcher for the New York Yankees and then later for the Houston Astros. But like for a better part of a decade, he was the big game pitcher. Felix Hernandez is going to be a guy who changes, I think, how we view what is a Hall of Famer as a pitcher, because the counting numbers aren't there. But for 8 years, he might have been the best pitcher in baseball. Dustin Pedroia is going to stay on the ballot. Him and Felix Hernandez were the only other first-timers to make it to a second year on the ballot. But again, congratulations. Ichiro, CeCe Sabathia, Billy Wagner. The Hall of Fame is better for the presence of all three of those ball players.
Really quickly, are you surprised CeCe got in first ballot?
I am not. I mean, 250 wins, 3,000 strikeouts, signature postseason moments, like defining moments, and also like a great ambassador for the game, like a very real,
awesome personality,
human story. Like the guy was an alcoholic and had to go to rehab and beat that late in his career. Tremendous teammate on a championship team. His time with the Brewers, only 17 starts, but like, that's maybe the defining stretch of his career.
I would say so. That's what I think of him.
Yeah.
Think of his career is that moment.
Going into free agency, knowing that maybe if he had gotten hurt, it could have cost himself millions of dollars. He said, I don't care. Pitch me every 4 days. Pitch me on 3 days rest. We're getting to the playoffs. Get on my back. And he pitched Milwaukee to the playoffs, where they had not been at that time, I think, since their World Series loss in 1982.
Had been a long time.
It had been a very long time. So, yes, all three of those men make the Hall of Fame better, in my opinion. That's going to do it for 580 Sports Talk headlines. Before we take a break, a real quick thought for my friends at Great Life here in Topeka. There is something for everybody at the 8 fitness facilities at Great Life. And if you don't believe me, go to greatlifetopeka.com and check out all of the amenities and where you can find them. There's a Great Life location near you if you live in this capital city, an opportunity for you to start on your fitness goals this new year. And in keeping with that theme of new year and new fitness, if you refer a friend to Great Life and you're a current member, both you and that friend can save up to 32% on your current membership. Again, go to greatlifetopeka.com for more details. When we come back, what scares you the most about the Buffalo Bills coming up in the AFC Championship game? We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. We missed this in headlines, but a texter from the 913 did want to call my attention and everyone else's by proxy to the fact that, in his words or their words, that crazy golf is on tonight. TGL, baby. I don't know who the matchup is.
I think Atlanta,
the
right?
New York Golf Club and Atlanta Drive GC.
You know who is the main backer? The Arthur Blank.
Of the Atlanta club?
Yeah.
Well, then I don't know what losing a 28-3 lead looks like in golf terms, but you can expect the Atlanta Drive to do it at some point.
Look, if you're going to be putting video game golf on my television, it better feature Mario, Luigi, Bowser, and Wario.
Matty Fitz, Ricky Fowler, Cameron Young for NY Golf Club tonight. That'll be the lineup they run out there. Atlanta Drive will send out Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, and Billy Horschel. Well, Thomas and Cantlay got top fives at the Amex this weekend. Steph Straka won. It's already PGA season.
Yeah.
This is funny. So I went and found so I saw this earlier on Twitter because Luke Combs is a limited partner in the Atlanta Drive.
Okay.
Along with Matt Ryan, Chipper Jones, and Ryan Seacrest. So I went to their social media. I didn't realize they have like legit like lockers.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some clips. I mean, it's a whole big production.
Yeah. I just want to play it. My ultimate, like I've watched a little bit of the first two nights, and my takeaway is let me in and let me play it. I want to play on the Giant Golf Simulator. Let me play it. If you are not going to let me play it,
$3,000 for an hour.
My interest is going to wane. Let me play the big golf simulator. Let me play on the rotating and undulating green. I want to play at what do they call it? The SoFi Arena, I think.
So do they play real golf or are there gimmicks on the screen and stuff?
Well, like the holes are not constrained by like geography. So you can do some clever things with your hole designs.
Sure.
But generally speaking, they are things that could exist. It's not like, well, hole number 3 has anti-gravity shields and there's a there's a dragon 200 yards down the fairway that could eat your ball. Like, no, it's like realistic.
I'd watch that.
You hit the ball into the sand, you have to hit out of sand. You hit the ball in the rough, you have to hit out of rough. They have like little patches of rough and grass.
The rough should be dogs. They say rough.
Okay.
I would watch that.
They'd be hitting dogs?
Well, no, the dog's just like around.
Okay, yeah,
there's one like scratching himself right in front of your ball, and you have to be careful where you hit it.
I think dog caddies would instantly make golf the number one sport in America. People love dogs.
People do love dogs.
I think if every caddy was replaced by a dog,
yeah.
Like I don't know how that would work in practice, but yeah, dog caddies, more dogs involved in golf.
I could live with that.
You might have like somebody's caddy leave one on the 10th green. That could be a hazard. I don't know if you have to play it as it lies if you hit one into Fido's leavings in the middle of the fairway, but that's not my problem to solve.
By the by, one update from, well, not really an update, but a fact from the Hall of Fame voting. This is the second time ever that a player got all but one vote for the Hall of Fame. Can you name the other?
I think it was Ken Griffey Jr., wasn't it?
It was not. He was 3 shy. 3 people out of 440 said, nope, sorry, Griffey.
Yeah.
Too many injuries. Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter. Yeah,
we
that
actually,
makes sense.
I was complaining about the number of votes. It actually has gone down precipitously over time. When Cal Ripken Jr. was voted in, and he missed 8 people didn't vote for Cal Ripken. How stupid are you?
I know, right?
There were 545 votes. We're nearing Heisman voting territory with a number like that.
Yeah, that is a lot. Yeah, the number has gone down.
900 people voting for an award.
I wonder, Ichiro famously not complimentary about the Midwest. He once said, if I ever say I'm excited to go to Cleveland, punch me in the face because I'm lying. He also famously said about Kansas City that it was hotter than 2 rats engaging in coitus in a wool sock.
Uh-huh.
And it said that in English. Yeah, not the biggest fan of the Midwest. Maybe there's a Cleveland sports writer out there that took umbrage. I don't know. Anyhow, let's get back into some football, shall we?
Yes. I just had this pop up, and I think it dovetails, Dan, with what you wanted to ask us. So, from Twitter, account @AccountStat And that's really the name of it. It's amazing for football stats. They've got a graphic of the yards allowed per coverage snap versus passer rating allowed for every qualified cornerback in the NFL from 22 through 24. Jalen Watson ranks better than Trent McDuffie in this comparison of metrics. Slightly better in yards allowed per coverage snap, slightly better in passer rating allowed. And I think Trent McDuffie is one of the two best. I legitimately think he is in that level, in that kind of group. And Jalen Watson over the past 3 seasons has actually, in at least those two stats, been slightly better at both of them than McDuffie. Now, he has also been targeted a lot less. He has played far smaller number of games than Trent McDuffie has in that period of time. But still, that tells you the kind of player that the Chiefs are bringing back onto the field for this Bills matchup that they did not have the first time.
It could not be a wider gulf in quality between Jalen Watson and the way that Najee Johnson played, in particular, in that Buffalo game back in Week 11. Chiefs obviously lost that game, but we talked in the first hour of the show that the Chiefs should be in better position to address the things that got them beat the first time around, even beyond like the intangible, well, it's playoff time and the Chiefs are at home, like beyond all that stuff, like the on-field chess match is on different terms and in a way that I think does help out the Chiefs. But that being said, what scares you the most about the Bills? Let's get the anxieties out in the open here on Tuesday. What is the most concerning aspect of this matchup for you if you're the Chiefs? If you can do them in 3 words or less, all the same. Stretch your creative muscles here.
I've got one because I put it in the chat. In the thing. Joshua, Patrick, Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
The things that he can do are crazy.
Yeah. No,
like he was running like a fullback the other day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm right there with you, Spencer. Like the way that Buffalo wins this game is that Josh Allen is perfect.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, that might still not be enough, but that is the avenue to win. If he's pedestrian or even pretty good, they will not win this football game. But if he is great, they've got a chance to win the game because he's a good runner. He can throw on the move. His accuracy, the improvement in his accuracy from his first 2 years to where he is now, it needs to be studied by scientists the world over. It's genuinely incredible. That is number one. I like their receivers and their pass catchers, let me say. I like their pass catchers more than a lot of people do. Khalil Shakir is still their best pass catcher. I like Shakir a lot, but that's not going up against Justin Jefferson. That's not going up against Jamar Chase or A.J. Brown or Devontae Adams or someone like that. Amari Cooper's been a no-show for a couple of weeks now. Keon Coleman, I like a lot. I think the potential is awesome, but he's not exactly a game breaker, snap in, snap out at this point of his career. The tight ends are more name than I think they are production at this point, to be frank with you. I love the running back. James Cook's awesome. He's a really good player. But the Chiefs are also really good against the run, specifically running back runs. A little less so against quarterback runs. So it all comes down to Josh Allen. And what is he able to do with what the Chiefs present to him? I do think there is a matter, in basketball, sometimes you get, so-and-so's going to get his. Like you play LeBron James. Okay, LeBron's going to get his. What are we going to do about the other, 80 points that the team has to score to win this game? How can we limit those as much as possible? Josh Allen's going to put up a couple of crazy plays. Or make a couple of crazy plays. He'll put up some pretty impressive stats in all likelihood, but you just limit it as much as possible. The only concern is that he just goes ballistic. At least to me.
I do not. May I offer a rejoinder? Because I don't want because I don't want to diminish the greatness of Josh Allen because he is a great player. I would say 2 things. Number one, I think that his impact on the ground is a little overstated. I think he's great in short yardage. Awesome in short yardage. Like, this is a team that should always go for it on 4th and 1 because you have an ox at quarterback and you're not ever going to fail a quarterback sneak. Unless he slips or drops the football. 4th and 1, 4th and inches, automatic. Go for it and just send that big son of a gun into the middle of the line. But I think that his impact as a rusher is a little bit overstated beyond that. And I think that they don't want to use him as a rusher, which I'm going to get back to that point. We'll set that point aside. The other thing I will say is that Buffalo just beat Baltimore in a game where Josh Allen threw for 127 yards and rushed for 20. And the reason they were able to do that, one, because Baltimore messed themselves and turned the ball over 3 times. But the thing that really stands out to me as a threat to the Chiefs, my 3 words or less are Cook, Johnson, and Davis. James Cook, Ty Johnson, and Ray Davis, who are running the ball really well right now as a triumvirate. Davis had the rushing touchdown, 4 carries, 29 yards. Ty Johnson, 5 for 31. James Cook was the workhorse, didn't have a huge game, but 17 for 67, and he's very capable as a receiver as well. Really, both Cook and Johnson are.
I would agree. I think the yards per pop are what really stand out to me about them. They don't get a lot of opportunities, but when they get opportunities to run, they're going to make you pay.
They've been very effective, and this leads me to a question that I think we're going to explore a little bit more on tomorrow's show, but how sure are we that the Chiefs' run defense is still good? Because for the back half of the season, the numbers say it hasn't been, and it was not particularly good against the Houston Texans. So if the Chiefs' rush defense is closer to what it has been in recent weeks than what it was to start the season, and what it was against the Bills for the better part of that Week 11 game, that could be a problem because the Bills, they want to shorten games. They want to play mistake-free football. They don't want to give the Chiefs an inch. They might have the personnel on the ground, and Allen is part of that, to be able to do that. But hold on to that thought because we are going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow vis-a-vis the Chiefs' rush defense and why it has gone backwards, or at least why the numbers say it's gone backwards in the second half of the season. We got to take a quick break. We'll come back. Some way too early college football top 25s were released today after the end of the season. We'll talk about them next.
Stress-free retirement. Retirement Income Hour is a show built with your financial future in mind and can be heard right here every Sunday morning at 8. This provides services offered through Mid-American Wealth Advisory Group and SEC registered investment advisory firm.
Now at Menards, saving money on everything for your next project. Transform everyday spaces into gathering places with custom craft countertops from Menards. Countertops are the center of the home, and we offer stylish options with durability that will last for years to come. Visit our kitchen showrooms in-store or go on Menards.com and get a free design estimate today. Plus, check out our weekly flyer for many other great deals happening this week.
Save big money at Menards. These are today's top headlines.
President Trump is back in the saddle and executive orders are flying. Front and center is the blanket pardon for the charged and convicted January 6 rioters. Immigration also right up there, including an end to birthright citizenship.
Don't miss a thing. Stay connected for whatever's next.
News that affects you on air and on demand 24/7. FM 104.9, 580 AM, WIBW. WIBW, Topeka.
Rounding the turn, heading for home on this edition of 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday. Be the last time we have the three of us together for a full show this week. Brendan's gone tomorrow for some Washburn hoops. Going to Maryville.
Yep, up to Bearcat Arena.
Hashtag OABob.
OABob. Washburn versus Northwest Missouri State. The women looking for a little bit of revenge. They lost in overtime, 66-61, the first time they met. Washburn's women have never lost 3 straight to Northwest. They lost 2 in a row. Try to avoid history against in the women's game. The men won by 30 when they played the first time. Northwest, since that game, has not won. Washburn has kept winning. Road games are tough in the MIAA, but I like Washburn's chances.
Real quick, wanted to get to this. Mark Schlabach of ESPN and Stuart Mandel, The Athletic, put out way too early college football top 25s after the conclusion of the college football season last night. For the record, Mark Schlabach has Ohio State as number 1. Stuart Mandel has Penn State at number 1, which I'll believe it when I see it. But I don't really care about that. I care about how they have Big 12 teams ranked. That's what I'm interested in. And here, both columnists have 4 Big 12 teams ranked. Mark Schlabach of ESPN has BYU 9th, Iowa State 11th, Arizona State 14th, K-State 16th. 4 of the top 16 in the country being Big 12 teams. Stuart Mandel has Arizona State 9th, BYU 10th, Baylor 19th, K-State 23rd. Does that feel like about the hierarchy you would expect for next year, at least in the preseason in the Big 12, with BYU and Arizona State at the top and then a combination of teams kind of behind them? I think BYU's losing a lot on defense, but they're bringing a lot back on offense.
Yeah, they are. Does Retzlaff have another year?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I think BYU should be pretty good. I am nervous about Arizona State. I don't know that I would put them that
They
high.
built so much of the plane out of Cam Scadaboo.
Right.
Like, I
now,
know.
granted, Levitt should be better.
Yes, and Jalen Tyson's back.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Big deal.
But Cam Scadaboo was so much of that team.
Yeah, top 5 in Heisman voting, right?
Yeah. So that's gonna be really hard to replace. Interesting. Iowa State 11th in the ESPN. Stuart Mandel doesn't rate them at all. That is fascinating.
That is fascinating.
K-State 16th from Schlabach, 23rd from Mandel. For me, both say like the portal additions on defense are going to be vital.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good sort of evaluation of. By the way, the next Division I college football game, Farmageddon in Dublin.
I saw somebody put on somewhere on social media last night that the last pass of this season would have been thrown by Will Howard. The first pass of next season may be thrown by.
How about that?
Poetic.
We'll take a final timeout. We'll come back with a final word here on 580 Sports Talk.
Today. For a full list of benefits, visit kfb.org/benefits.
These are today's top headlines.
President Trump is back in the saddle and executive orders are flying. Front and center is the blanket pardon for the charged and convicted January 6 rioters. Immigration also right up there, including an end to birthright citizenship.
Don't miss a thing. Stay connected for whatever's next.
News that affects you on air and on demand 24/7. FM 104.9, 580 AM, WIBW. WIBW, Topeka.
One more thing.
In conclusion, you better
Wrapping up and walking off this edition of 580 Sports Talk with a final word. Spencer Dupuis, lead us off.
Still basking in the glory of a Commanders victory heading to the conference championship game against the Eagles. But I'd be remiss to say that DC broadcasting legend and voice of Navy, who's passed away today, and in Pete Medhurst, and it's a pretty sad day. He actually got to call the Nationals during their 2019 season when one of the broadcasters was sick, and just an all around great broadcaster. And I looked up to him while I was going through school for broadcasting, and it's a sad day that he's passed away due to cancer.
Yeah, very, very sad. Very, very sad. I know he meant to a lot of people out on the Beltway. My final word for today, KJ Adams is pretty good, man. I know that there is a lot of consternation about him for all sorts of reasons because of his offensive game. KU's at its best defensively when KJ Adams is out there. And if you're still trying to say, well, Bill Self worries too much about defense, I just don't really know what to tell you at this point, 23 years into it. I'm excited for when he eventually gets back, although KU probably shouldn't need him tomorrow night against TCU.
Final word for me. 3 great left-handers going into the Hall of Fame today, the Baseball Hall of Fame. That makes a fellow Southpaw awfully happy. Ichiro, no-brainer. One of the players who you can truly say, no matter who you rooted for, a joy to watch. Somebody you made a point to go to the ballpark and see. I'll double back to that real quick. Also happy to see CC Sabathia, one of the great left-handed starters of his era, and arguably the greatest left-handed reliever, Billy Wagner, get into the Hall of Fame today. Back to that Ichiro point. I got to see Ichiro play in person in Kansas City in 2004. I was on my way to Indiana for my freshman year of college. My family was driving me out there, my brother, my parents. We stopped in Kansas City for a night, got some barbecue, went to Gates, and went to the ball game, Kauffman Stadium, to see the Mariners and the Royals. And some jabroni named Jimmy Serrano, pitching that night for the Royals, domed Ichiro in his second at bat, rang a fastball right off his helmet, and Ichiro had to leave the game. And I will never forgive Jimmy Serrano for that.
Nor should you.
Can't believe that happened. John Buck had a winning home run in that game, by the way. I have a pretty good memory of those things. That was my first trip to the K. Anyhow, congratulations to all of them. That'll do it for us. Till tomorrow, for Brendan and Spencer, I'm Dan. This is 580 Sports Talk. Good night.